Hey everyone, welcome back to the IwEP network, or if it's your first time,
Thank you for hanging out with us.
thank you so much for choosing this podcast, and feedback is always welcome. So make sure to check the links below for all social media links, audio and video versions of this show, and merch. We look forward to hearing from you and hearing that feedback, and enjoy the show.
Clouds inside my sleep. Sometimes they are fake, but they still dig deep. And when I fall to the back of my mind, I find that I've gone too far this time. Too far this time.
Hey, everybody. We're here. Episode 9. Let me get all this stuff off the screen so I'm not making eye contact with you, Tim. Should start here.
Lord.
Yeah, so here we are. We are back. Interviews with Everyday People. It's been a long time. Fourth time appearance. This guy here.
Is it my fourth?
I think so.
On
It's your-
Interviews with Everyday People.
Yeah, fourth interview. This is your fourth interview.
And what episode are you up to?
This is 95. I'm 5 away from 100.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Really?
Yeah.
Aren't you going to do anything special?
I kind of just like booked everybody from now till the beginning of I'm doing an interview every Saturday from now till the February. So every day now to February is booked. So I really didn't look into who is where.
Mhm.
And then I kind of like thought about it the other day, like, oh shit, yeah, this is my next, like this person's the 100th interview, and I didn't really put any thought into it. It just kind of happened naturally. But people back out and bail all the time, so we'll see what happens.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of cool things been
See, but
going
that's the difference between me and you, because I feel like I'm the kind of guy, I didn't do it this year, and maybe it's just because of the year or because I turned 31, but I'm the kind of guy that like waits, like when it turns, like my birthday's December 1st. So around
on. On the 5th.
oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So around like mid-November, I'll start being like, it's my birthday.
Yeah,
It's coming
I
up.
can care less. I always forgot how old I was.
I feel like I should feel like that because
Yeah.
I feel like that's when I was growing up. I looked at like all the men in my life, and they were
Mhm.
like, "I don't care, it's my birthday," and I'm like, "I,
Someone give me a
guys."
cake.
Well, here's maybe another thing. Being a December baby, it's like you only really get celebrated like in this
Yeah,
one
it's
time.
like here's your Christmas and birthday gift.
I didn't get that. Did you?
My whole life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you were that close on the
No,
on
just I had poor family.
See, because I'm sure that's a topic of conversation. Is like, when is the appropriate time that like you can't? You have to separate the two.
Yeah.
But maybe it does come down to the wealth distribution as well.
Yeah. It's like, oh, we're gonna get you want 2 shitty gifts or one really good one? And of course, as a kid, you're like, I want the good one. They're like, this is gonna be your birthday and Christmas. I mean, my parents said that, but then when Christmas came, it was like I got something at least. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But like aunts, uncles, family, it was like, we're gonna double gift you.
I know a girl who I went to school with who her birthday is Christmas Day.
That sucks.
Yeah, man. I was supposed to be a Christmas baby. I was born on the 1st, like I said, and I came like 3 weeks
How
early.
insane would it be? Because you're like a man of God and Jesus if you were fucking born on Christmas.
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure
There's gotta be something to that if that happened.
Yes. Yeah, but like
I think God knew and he's like, fuck you. You're coming on the
You're-
1st.
You're coming early. People
Yeah.
are gonna make your life too much of a living hell if you share the birthday with my son. That's not actually his real birthday, and people will tell you about that. I'm happy that people don't say that, or maybe were you just happy about
No,
that?
yeah, because a lot of people don't know that. They're like,
Yeah, I will see. I guess I feel like I heard that a lot growing up. Was just like, well, it's not his real birthday, and it's just like, yeah, and like the problem is that I used to try to defend it
Mhm.
and be like, well, like whatever. I don't even know what I would really say to that.
Yeah.
But like,
It was a joint thing with the paganism holiday and his birthday, and it was easier just to kind of put them together to have everyone joining on the same religion.
right? Were
Yeah.
you ready for this swift plug?
Yeah, go ahead.
I recently did an episode of my podcast, Hireth and Other Words, that's linked below.
It is linked below. Check it out.
I did an episode on, it's called like the psychological significance of the year's end. I tried to get as fancy sounding as I could.
Yeah.
And I really talked about this time of year. It's so poignant in our collective consciousness for people that live in what we would call like the Western Hemisphere, or like these places in the world where we experience season. And you go from a time of like it's such a clear, evident change from summer to winter.
Yeah.
You know,
If you live somewhere else, like, is it winter? Or, like, we think it's still fucking hot.
yeah, like
Yeah.
right. Like I've been to places like India, like in January, and you're just like, this is as hot as I want to be. Like I don't need to be any hotter than this. People die from like heat stroke there in the summer. Like
Really?
it's
Fuck that.
insane. Yeah, I mean, it's nuts living that close to the sun. I do not do well in the heat. Wherever I've never done like one of those ancestry tests, but if I do, it's just going to be people that like.
Yeah, there's a
live-
reason I'm as pale as a ghost. You know,
Yeah, man.
I went to Dominican Republic and did not have a great time.
No.
I mean, I had a great time, but it's you're living on the sun. It feels like.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, so I'm doing really terrible already off the bat. So I want to thank real fast the plugs. So we have a sponsor now, Tim.
Woo!
This is the beginning of season 3. So we officially hit our 3rd year.
Gongxi. That's
We're going for
congratulations in Chinese. That was the first thing that came to my head.
Oh, thank you.
Gongxi.
Gongxi to you too, I guess.
Oh, thank you.
So this is our season 3 debut for the network in general. And then I think a lot of it I want to talk to you with today is we're going to plug your stuff and talk about that, but also like it's going to sound like cliche and stupid, but it's a new year, new me, right? So we're going to talk about we're going to kind of get into your style of podcast for what you do and kind of dive into what it means to have a fresh start with a new year.
I like it.
And maybe we didn't start off camera very positive. We're just kind of,
Let's just full disclosure.
yeah, like me and like Tim and I really enjoy talking to you because I can say what I want. There's a lot of people in my close circle I can just say what I want, and sometimes I'm just an idiot and I just say stuff to be funny, even though I'm not. It's not funny what I say sometimes, but it entertains me because I have a dark humor. But yeah, so I like having conversations and I can kind of vent and we can vent to each other and bitch about stuff and be like, this sucks, and then we're like, all right, we over it, we're over it, let's get going. You know what I mean?
So another plug, man, we're just knocking it out of the park organically. Is tomorrow I'm releasing the first podcast of season 2 of mine. I haven't been doing it for 2 years, just a couple over half a year.
Yeah.
But anyways, with my mom and oh Lord, I lost my train of thought where we were going. Plugging the podcast. Oh, I was saying on the podcast that I haven't been overtly spiritual in my like private life.
Yeah.
So there has been this little conflict within me where I feel like kind of a hypocrite when I come up and I'm like, all right, guys, let's focus on whatever. But it's been good for me because it's good for me to say that out loud than to be like just hidden behind the episode of the podcast and just be like, I'm really struggling with stuff, but I'm not bringing this to this. It's like, no, part of spirituality it's the whole thing, you know, like I think we too often align spirituality with just straight positivity and not understanding that part of being human, which is ultimately what spirituality is just the depth of being human, is that there is some really dark parts of being human.
Yeah.
You know?
I lean into it heavily too.
Well,
I have to, because if I don't lean into it sometimes, and if I don't meet it with humor, then I spiral. Like I've learned who I am. Like I think it's something I got very good at.
What do you mean by that?
Like, if
you pick yourself out of a lineup?
Yeah, like I
like an emotional lineup.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like I was someone who hid behind my emotions for a very long time, even though I was always very. I can't say I hid behind emotions. I was always someone who was very upfront with my emotions. If I was upset, if I was angry, if I was bitter, if anything, it showed. It was hard for me to disguise it. So I always was very open about it, but I wouldn't always know how to express it. And I'm getting better at that. But yeah, it just, I don't know. I vent. I'm the type of person, I'm like, all right, I fucking hate this. This is bothering me. I say it to somebody. I vent. I get it out of my system, and then I move on. But you have to be careful with who you do that with, because if you're like, man, fucking Jim over there is pissing me off. Like, I don't hate Jim. I don't want nothing bad to happen to Jim. But what Jim's doing right now is making me upset. So I'm going to come to you as a confidant, as someone who I'm trusting you not to technically take that information. Like, it's not talking behind someone's back. It's just me getting it off my chest.
Right.
But we have a lot of people in our society who will take that as you're talking shit, and they'll be like, yo, Jim Blackwell just said some dirty shit about you. And then, no, I was just venting. I have nothing negative about that person. I don't hate that person. I just needed to get it off my chest.
Right. Because you're a human too, and you're allowed to feel however it is that you're feeling.
Absolutely.
The problem with that, or I guess not the problem, but the thing that you need to do, like you said, is just find the right people to do it with. Because
that's a challenge.
Yeah, because it's a lot of people, you take whatever you said and use it as ammunition against you. It's like, well, now I know that Anthony Blackwell doesn't like Timothy Mengle, you know, or whatever it is. And now I have that in my bullet, that chamber, the gun, whenever I need to fire it off.
Mhm.
But
So when I'm hurting emotionally, I can take someone down with me.
right.
One of those types of deals. But anyway, real quick, sponsor. 10 minutes into the podcast.
We are so bad at saying.
Well, I've never had to read a sponsor ad.
I'm sorry.
That's
do
okay.
it.
All right, so Abaddon Tattoo Studio is our brand new sponsor.
Woo!
I'm gonna get better as I read this ad off.
Do you want me to do like fun banner with you?
We'll try.
No, because I'll get
Unique
distracted.
professional experience nestled in the small town of Pine Grove, Pennsylvania. They provide high quality tattoos and piercings in a relaxed, professional, sterile environment. If you want to contact them, it's 570-345. They all blended together there, 3511, or you can just check the links below for their phone number and tattoo experiences. We will be doing giveaways and stuff like that on the show. I do also have a giveaway coming up very soon. You'll also follow us on social media for that. I have a $10 gift certificate for pressed coffee that I picked up today.
I know where that place is.
Yeah.
I've been there a time or two in my days.
Yeah. So the
I actually
thing,
sold it to you.
yeah,
So
he did.
I don't know. Is that exciting for you people at home? I touched it.
He did. It's touched by Tim. So
That's a new podcast I'm working on. It's
Yeah.
not.
touched by Tim.
Yeah.
That could
See,
be- that could
this
be
is what I
terrible.
need to stop doing when I listen back on podcasts I've done with you. Is I say a bunch of dirty or inappropriate or I curse a lot, like right up front, and then I try to promote these things
Yeah.
later, and I'm just like, oh, I might have scared away some people.
That's what happens when you hang out with the devil. You know?
Well, hey, you got to meet him somewhere. So
Jesus hung out with the scumbags. You know?
yeah, he absolutely
And here you are
did.
with me.
Yeah, but you're not a scumbag, and I don't think Jesus. See, there's the thing, man. Like Jesus didn't look at these people and he's like he wasn't like, these are the scumbags, I'm gonna go hang out with them, because that doesn't make him like he's just being a pompous asshole. He's just understood that like people need love.
He liked to
you know?
party, you know.
Yeah, and I'm sure who doesn't? But I'm sure. Well, see, there's me. I want to defend Jesus and be like, no, he was a righteous man. But like,
You can be righteous and enjoy some booze.
you're absolutely right. And see, there's like, I love when like I can see like the part of my like, I just love when I can see clearly parts of me that I like I'm not aware of.
Yeah.
You know, because obviously that can be very scary, because it's fun to admit that I'm like, oh man, there's a part of me that's still like a very conservative Christian that is like, no, you listen, Anthony, he lived without sin. Like that is, and then like, I think if you pushed me, I would be like, yeah, I think I do actually believe that. But like at the end of the day, I'd be like, listen, he was a man who was just like,
Do you think he lived vicariously through people?
Jesus.
Yeah. Like, you know how when you're like, I'm a married,
Well, there's
I'm a married
multiple
guy.
ways to
Like-
answer that question.
Like, I'm a married guy. So
Mhm.
like when I see somebody at like a friend and they're young and they're doing awesome shit,
Mhm.
you're not doing that anymore because you're married. You're like, how was your weekend? You did what? Awesome, man.
Well,
But
I
you're
also-
like, I can't do that.
but I also
Jesus
think
is
that the-
like, yeah. But listen, when you get older, calm the fuck down.
Here's what I'll say about Jesus and his righteousness or lack thereof. I would say that we have a very bad relationship with that term to like just begin with. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like some people would call it not righteous that I'm drinking, and like I'll use profanity and like,
Well, this
vape or
beer is 4.62. So
I don't
it's
know.
cool. That's
Is it good?
Shenandoah. Shenandoah's 4.62.
oh nice.
So it's 4.62.
I love how much you love this area.
Yeah, I do. I'm so proud of it. Real quick, for people
Okay.
if this is your first time ever listening to a podcast or interviews with everyday people, welcome. And if you don't know who Tim is, or if you're listening on other platforms, Tim is you would say a Christian, right?
Yeah,
a Christian. I don't know that like I don't want to define you in the wrong way, but you're spiritual, you're Christian. We like I said, fourth podcast. We're not going to go into your whole story again. If people want to check it out, go listen to other episodes. But he's traveled the world. He's taught and learned Christianity in different countries, in different languages. It's something he's done for a long time. Very spiritual person. He has a spiritual podcast. And I am the complete polar opposite of all of that. But we have found a way, because we have great conversations and great chemistry. We can have conversations about spirituality and religion, even though I may not agree, but I can agree to disagree. Like it's a healthy thing that you're gonna. So you're gonna hear me probably pick fun, and he's gonna talk and
try to and laugh along with it, but then
Yes.
try to be like, well, now Anthony.
Yes, exactly. It's. Yeah.
But I think, I was saying to Anthony off mic is that I don't want to just. I mean, I'd love being known for this as the spiritual guy. Besides, like the obvious baggage that comes with it is like, when I was younger, it's not so much now. But there's definitely like a morality code to it of just like you say you're a Christian. Are you doing like Christian things?
Absolutely.
So when I understand,
and Christians get held to that too, because if you claim that, and then you're out there fucking acting buck wild,
right,
and then you come to me like, hey, bro, you need to follow. Like, bitch, I was just smoking drugs with you, you know, or not drug, but like
sure,
I was
just doing something that you would say is anti what you would normally.
We just like Chinese finger cuffed a chick together, you know what I mean? Use your imagination.
Anyways, check out my podcast.
Yeah. I will say this though, as someone who is, I would say I'm spiritual. I am open-minded to spirituality. I'm not going to say I've never been in the church or I've never had teachings. That's not true either. Like I didn't do it to the same extent as you, but there was time in my life where I went to church and I tried to learn Bible study, and I went to different types of churches. But I will say I do enjoy your podcast, because even if you erase the spirituality from your podcast and you don't buy into the God or the Jesus or whatever it is, there is a overtone positive message that comes out of your podcast, and I try to convey that as well. So I mean, I will say there's a few interviews I listened to where I did get content out of it while I was at work, and I was like, all right, I need to get better in this aspect. You know what I mean?
Thank you, man.
And yeah,
thank you. Thank you for, I really appreciate that. And because for me, man, like I'm not out to hurt anybody or to tell anybody that they're wrong. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Like I'm trying to tell people that, like, no, you're stronger than you think. Like, and you're much more capable than you'll ever know. And again, like I have this lucky scapegoat where I can say that I come at religion and spirituality from a psychological perspective, because really I do. Like I'm not just saying that as an excuse, because I do, and I'm very open that I participate with religious acts. I pray, I meditate, I do the whole shebang. I lost my rosary.
And you also come at it from a perspective of an everyday person, you know,
right? Yeah.
Hence the podcast name here. But no, like you are in the music scene. You will have an occasional beer. You don't put yourself over like do as I say, not as I do type thing. You're like, hey man, if that's the way you live your life, then cool. But here's the small things you can work on now to better yourself in the future. And I think that's why a lot of people gravitate and latch to you and get positivity from you and use you as a sponge of positivity. Because when someone's going through things, I know me personally, you're one of 4 people I reach out to kind of soak in a little positivity. I know like it may sound like a leech, and you talked about in a podcast before where sometimes you have nothing to give, with the story where Jesus felt like someone touched him and it felt like it took something from him. Sometimes people need that, you know what I mean? And
that's why they reached out against his permission, against his consent, you know,
because they were desperately need for energy.
Well, and there's like, here's the thing, man, is like, I don't set myself up in that position without understanding that that's like going to happen, you know? And that's the problem, is I got really burnt out in ministry. And part of it was like, there was no one saying like, you're allowed to feel this way. It was all like, just get back to feeling like 100% or whatever, you know? There was never any talk of like, you're allowed to go through the valleys as deep as they go, you know? And for me, man, like, I come.
Someone retyped in finger cuff.
Oh, good, good.
Bring that back.
Someone make some fan art. No, don't make any fan art.
Target on.
Oh no,
just me and Tim, just Eiffel Tower.
Oh Lord Jesus!
Don't do that. You can dress up in Jesus. No, don't.
So here's going back to what you were saying was, you know, my tagline for the podcast is something along the lines of like the spiritual path in the everyday life. Because I was actually listening back to my first episode recently.
It's a good episode.
Thank you. And I feel like I just talked the whole time. So yeah, with Ben Durr.
Ben Durr. I like that one a lot.
Thank you, man. I need to get him back on, because I just felt like I steamrolled over him that whole episode, and I'm just like, here's every thought I've ever had.
But you know, it's a growing thing. Obviously, if you go back and listen to some of my early ones, people like, you talk too much, man. But it's not. I don't know. It, like I said, it says interviews everyday people, but it's just a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I thought the one with Ben was really good. I thought the one with Jay was really, really good. The only thing is, I was listening on those bone condensing headphones, so they don't go in your ear; they go on your temple.
How are they? I saw those.
Oh boy, you should experience Jay on your temples with his with his bassy voice.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it was like a head orgasm. It was crazy. me and Jay bonded on that podcast.
He doesn't
even know it.
Wait to tell him about this.
Yeah, Jay. boy, I'll bring my headphones. I think there's somewhere here plugged in.
Oh my goodness.
It because it pulls out the certain tones and because it puts it into your temple and not in your earbuds. So you're allowed to wear them at where I work because it's not plugging your ears. And so like anyone with a really deepy, bassy voice or like the bass tones of a song, they like it vibrates your skull. Oh yeah.
I think we talked about this a little bit on that podcast, but he's like a musical prodigy. So there's a part of me that knows.
I've never heard him play an instrument.
No, but his wife will make us watch videos a lot of him doing stuff,
Really?
which is the cutest thing in the world.
She's a big fan of Truth Behind Illusion, I believe.
Really?
I think she likes the Truth Behind. I could be wrong.
I think. Well, I don't know. She's never talked to me about it,
Yeah.
which would be surprising because I think she knows that we know each other.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, anyways, I think he would really appreciate that his voice resonates on such a pleasurable level.
Yeah, it was like ASMR. It was.
Have you ever listened to any ASMR?
No, I mean I did. I just laughed through it. It was
Oh,
funny.
really?
Yeah.
Just because it's like
like a lady eating pickles or something. Yeah.
yeah. No, I never got in. Dude, when I lived out in Oregon, when I would I used to do this thing, and I miss it, but I don't want to try to replicate it again. But on my weekends, I would just do like 4-hour-long meditation sessions, and I would just sit on my bed and like the normal like meditation pose. I don't even know the name of it. This is how like poorly trained I am in this stuff. But I would just sit there for 4 hours just saying mantras in my head, but I would listen to like the quietest music. So like my whole world was just like, because part of spirituality is learning to listen to the inside of your body and not just responding to everything, right? It's like you can't just hear everything in your head and then just go as if like that's gospel. It's like there's voices in your head that aren't your friend, and like you got to watch out for those.
Yeah, that's where your negative thoughts can creep in. And once that negative thought creeps in, you're like, yeah, this does suck. You know what I mean? It's
well,
like,
and then
no.
see, here's another side to like here's the downside of logic is you can logic yourself to even be like, this bad thing is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's why like logic is a beautiful tool, but it's not a master.
I get that a lot at work. When I'm at work, right? Obviously, the job I do, there's times where I'm by myself and I'm isolated and it's just nothing but you and your thoughts. Now, the job has added these headphones so I can listen to a podcast or music where it kind of keeps your mind occupied while you're working, which I think is good for me. I really enjoy it. But I remember when I first worked there, I'd be working and just be like, you're just thinking of what you want to do when you're not at work, right? And then you're like, man, I hate this fucking job. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And then all the negative thoughts are in your head. You have nothing but your own thoughts to think of. And then by first break, you're like, I fucking hate this place. Right. And it has nothing to do with the job. No, it's just you got in your own head.
Right.
And that's where I've learned to be like, all right, you need to, like, when that comes, you need to be like, no, you need to combat that. Right. But what you said about meditation, how did you, like, did someone teach you how to meditate? Did you look up how to meditate, or how did you go about that? I
listened to like one. This is good because I've never really talked about my experiences with meditation, even though like I'm an avid like meditator.
I tell you how I do it, and I'm probably completely wrong. I like
there's no that's the thing is there's no.
I act like I'm sleeping. So like a lot of people are like, you sleep a lot, and what I do is I will just lay down and I'm in a sleep state, but that's where I'm thinking the most. It's weird because but it is very like I am very like even when I'm sleeping I'm thinking and I'm down. I don't know when my meditation ends, the dream begins, and when I'm awake starts.
Yep.
So like I feel like I'd never sleep, but I feel like I'm rested. If that makes any sense. Like there'll be times where I'm like, you know what? Like even before this podcast started, I just kind of laid down for like 20 minutes and it felt like I was sleeping, but the entire time I was kind of like clearing my head and then letting it happen. You know, it's not like just having a dream, but I'm not dreaming. Like I'm not like I'm climbing a ladder and then I fall. Like it's like I'm legit planning out how I want to conquer things or do things or how I'm going to, or maybe I'll think like, oh, if a situation like this occurs, how can I handle it? You know what I mean?
Do you feel like you're intentionally focusing your thoughts, or that you're allowing your thoughts to kind of run their course?
A little bit of both.
Yeah,
like I'll focus a thought on like for example, like how can I make this podcast grow? So I will sit and I'll think like, what are the different scenarios? Like I Doctor Strange it, like from like Avengers, like what are all the like what if the podcast tanks? What if it does really well? What if it stays where it's at? What if I get super negativity towards a podcast or or You know what I mean? Or what if one piece of the podcast falls away? How can I adapt or a change to it? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's kind of
Well,
how
here's what I would say, man. That here's the broad spectrum of, let's say, meditation. Let's say this is the circle of meditation. So within that you have things like yoga that is very intense, like body exercises, and then you have dream yoga, which is similar to what you're describing. But it sounds, and I've done similar things to what you do, is there's this idea of contemplation as an idea of meditation. And it's the idea of sitting still and sitting with your thoughts and utilizing them. I mean, the simplest like layman term is just mental masturbation, right? You're just taking all the routes possible until you get to a good conclusion or an idea or an epiphany.
I joke that I have Batman brain.
How so?
Because Batman's always game planning a situation and he's prepared for it.
Well, see, yeah. So my only thing that I would think about that is like, part of that circle of meditation is being able to just let your thoughts just go like a stream without attaching onto it. So for me, it sounds like more like contemplation or something like that is what you're doing. But the meditation that I was really doing when I first got into meditating was just sitting with the thoughts and just allowing whatever to just go wherever, like not directing it. And like I said, I do also the like just sit on my bed, like just have a thing in mind and like have that focus. I'm not saying like you're wrong by any means, but for me, because you did ask like where this began, but it began with very much just focusing on the breath. And for anyone who's really trying to do meditation that's like for calming or for like relieving of anxiety, that's the way to go. Because the whole point of it, because people will say like, oh, I'm meditating wrong, or it's whatever, is like, meditating it's such a broad term, but it's just focusing intently on one thing. Like that's how we use it kind of in just layman terms. Like, I've been meditating on this all day, so it's the idea of focusing your energy intentionally into one thing or into multiple things simultaneously, so it's essentially meditation to some degree can just be in what helps you to control and focus your energy. Because you hear people talk about like jujitsu or whatever being a sort of meditation. Yeah. Or like, I'm thinking a lot about Tai Chi because I do something similar to a Tai Chi.
Well, jujitsu is like if you're rolling with somebody. Now I've never done it, but I know the sport and I respect the sport. But if you're rolling or doing jujitsu, if you're not focused on what you're doing and eliminate everything that's going on in your personal life, you can walk out with a broken arm or walk out choked out or walk out with a dislocated knee, because you need to focus on your opponent and where they're shifting their weight and where they're leaning, if they're grabbing your wrist control, if they're like it's like wrestling. Like if you're like, all right, when I get done like here, I'm gonna go to the store and I'm gonna get like you're like I'm tap, you know what I mean? Because you're not focused on what you're doing. So I feel like that's why people say like jujitsu and boxing are physical. Well,
and that's when there's such a tied in all of those things to the present moment, because it's just like you're learning to focus and you're not, because the reality is when you're lost, like in your head, you're really lost. Like on the time.
I think a lot of people get lost in their head too much. And they don't allow themselves to become vulnerable and experience what they're experiencing at this point in time.
Well, that's what detachment is, right? And that's a evolutionary byproduct of trying to survive trauma.
Yeah.
And it's you can only have, I was going to say this to you on the car ride up here of how long we should take a bet and how long into the podcast before we start talking about redemption. But it's the idea of that there's just some people in the world that
that was kind of my whole idea. The whole, I'm serious, like the redemption and the new year. And,
like, and again, like that's why we have these holidays around here. And I know that they're just because I don't want to come off as a guy that's like, listen, new year, new me, like whatever, because obviously there's a truth of like, yeah, well, I can change whenever. But we as a society have given you the psychological space to say, hey, if you're gonna change, now is the time to change.
Most people don't start working out until a Monday because they feel it's the fresh start of the week.
I do the same thing. I'll be like, whenever I'm like giving up.
I can't work out on a Saturday.
I know, or like I can't start tomorrow. It's Wednesday.
Yeah.
Like why would
wait till next Monday?
I'm gonna stop smoking on Tuesday.
Exactly.
Like and
it's a psychological thing,
dude. And that's why I'm so curious with why people like what's the psychology, because it's like it's not just spirituality, because spirituality is definitely a major part of that, but it's because I would even say like that sort of mentality that having, or even like the idea of people that are like, I have to touch a doorknob 3 times before I lock it or whatever. Like it's like that is a psychological thing, and it's a religious thing insofar as it's something that you have to continually do to keep you aligned and to keep you kind of who you know that you are.
Yeah.
And it's also amazing that we know that we can just be like just taken away, like, because we were talking about it, just like we are not where we're supposed to be with our attitude.
I knew we would get there though.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure, but like, I mean, obviously, because we're having fun now, and it's
going back real quick, how you were saying about when people are always in their own headspace, right?
Mhm.
So doing this interview process for 95 times, like I know when we're sitting down, we're here, we're locked into each other. That connection has been made even before we hit record. I've seen interviews where people are here and they're terrified, like obviously behind the curtain.
Yeah, no, this can be intimidating.
This is a kitchen.
I mean, I'm blinded. I just stared at the light.
Yeah, you got 2 bright lights on you. You got a camera. You can see yourself. If you're not used to the setup, it's intimidating.
Oh, for sure.
And then you have people like, oh my God, I can't say certain things. What are they going to do? I can't do this. I can't do this. If I say the wrong thing, even if I'm being funny, I'm going to get canceled. Like everything is going through your head. And I can see in the middle of an interview where that just goes away. And I can literally look in someone's eyes and everything around them is now gone and they're locked into the conversation. And it's a really cool thing that I've learned to notice when it happens. And when it happens, like I get excited.
Right. Well, you can also tell because people maintain eye contact better. Yeah. And I was thinking about this is like the eyes are the only part of it's your part of your brain, and it's like whatever is going on inside of little Anthony's head, of course it's going to be reflected.
2 monkeys fucking a football. Just no idea what they're doing.
I mean, obviously I feel like you can obviously say that it'd be really fun to be like a chimpanzee or something like that, and it'd be really fun to like
just
be
to
this
jerk off and throw your shit all day.
It'd be really fun to be this futuristic version of yourself where like you're better, you're perfect, whatever, like you're completely enlightened, whatever it is. But like now it's so silly because you know that you're like, I'm this fucking barrel of monkeys that's trying to do the best
just
it can.
Trying to figure life out.
And it's like, that's why I have such overwhelming compassion for people, myself included. I'm not like saying that like looking down on people, but like just us as a species, because it's like, man, what a predicament we're in.
No one knows shit. Literally, I don't care. Think of the smartest person you know. Are you the smartest person you've ever seen in your life? And if you break them down and go live with them for a week, they're literally just fucking winging it. You know what I mean? Everybody in life is just fucking winging it.
I know. And it's well, and that's why I'm just like, man, I can't help but applaud the human species for just being here as long as they did. Like, and this is why I think we all know that like suicide and depression, all those things are like wrong, because it's like, man, like, and I do believe this on a subconscious level that we know that we're here for a reason and a purpose. And like, because I have this really simple point. It's like whenever you're comforting someone, the first thing you say is that it's going to be okay. Even if
in fact, now my dark mind is like, I have no idea.
Well, right, yeah.
I hope I don't show you wrong.
But it's interesting.
It may get worse.
But here's the thing. I think it's the best thing is to admit that, right? It's like, but I still think that there is a part of us that understands that the statement "it will be okay" is a reliable statement to some degree.
It can't, like the movie The Crow. It can't rain all the time.
I've never seen that movie, but
You've never seen The Crow?
No.
Oh, it's such a good movie.
There's so many movies I haven't seen that I really wish I've like seen. I realized that recently. Something that we were talking about.
That literally can be a podcast for us.
Just movies.
It's just you watch it, because I feel like you haven't seen a lot of movies in life. Like for you,
I've seen.
Like, there's a lot of books I will never read that you have read, because you are a book reader, and I'm like, I'll wait for it to come on movie.
I've read a lot of books that no one's read.
Exactly.
But yeah,
and I'm watching stupid movies, and you're like, you wasted an hour of your life with that.
But here's the thing, man. Like, there's a part of me that looks at us as like, whatever Anthony Blackwell and whatever Timothy Mengle is here to do is like, we're just collecting data for the larger hive mind of like, by by being who we're supposed to be and like experiencing the novelty and like the newness of life and like enjoying those things, like we're sending it back to the hive mind. And I don't know what that means necessarily outside of like instinct.
I
to just
loved your
say it.
mom's point of view when we did our podcast. I want to do another one with me, you, and your mom again.
I think it'd be really fun to have me, you, my mom, and
Tori. Yeah,
Yep.
100% agree on that. Like that could be an interviews every day people just us for. But we have to wait till it gets warm again, and we got to do it in the barn.
Okay, yeah.
That
She
was
said that
so-
she listens to your podcast.
Does
She's
she?
probably listening right now.
Oh my god,
Hi, Mom.
I love your mom to death. But when
We're doing a podcast out with Margaret Kinsey tomorrow. Check it out. Higher than other words.
so she did it on your podcast, but she did it on mine first. I just want to say thanks, Mom. But the way she broke down this realm that we're living in now, and the way you should prepare yourself mentally is
Mhm.
like a classroom,
Mm-hmm.
and take the classes you want. And if it doesn't work out, then give yourself a C and move on. It's a really good analogy to kind of just be like, don't beat yourself up if things don't work out, because there's so many other opportunities you can do. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it was such a cool analogy.
My mom has such a positive like perspective on everything, and
Yeah.
it's like I try to make sure that she stays aware of her pain and just being like, hey, listen, you're allowed to suffer, like it's
Yeah.
okay. But I'm also like I go to her, I mean, not just because she's my mom, but like so many other people, like you said to me, like I'm like, please, for the love of God, give me like
everyone needs an outlet.
right, yeah. And it's like there's no shame in like be like the relationship needs to be proper, right? And like I mean, but my mom tells me that like I need to be a pastor all the time or like start a church, and like I know that she's right, but like I just
You started a podcast. It's the same thing.
yeah, to some degree, right? Like at
Except
least
we
in
started a
quarantine
religion.
times.
If we started a religion, we'd probably make more money.
I don't know. I see. Well, I'm sure we could. See if I.
Here's the basket, everybody.
Yeah.
We got to keep the lights on.
I mean, we do. See, here. It's the shift from when that was appropriate to now is such a hard thing, because like, and this is a conversation I have with my mom a lot, and this is actually why like part of the reason I did start a podcast is like, listen, the only thing that I feel like that I like, the thing that I have to give most in the world is just knowledge, and just, and I don't say that because I think I'm smart, just because I've just dug a lot into weird stuff, and like there's just stuff sitting up there, like, and again, not because I think I'm better than anybody else, just because that was the thing that I wanted to do.
The one thing that you may think is insignificant, when you say it and it comes out of your mouth, could be a game changer for somebody else.
Right.
It truly can. Like going back to like how we say we all need our outlet. Like we all need to plug into a wall and recharge. And sometimes we do rely on other humans
I think that
before we go to a higher being.
Sure.
It's kind of like that diagram where it's like, we're going to start pouring water into this funnel, and what spot do you think will fill up first? Do you ever see that? So like, obviously every single person in this universe, whether it be your mom or your dad or your best friend or your, like, for example, Tori in her life probably has 4 or 5 people who, not some, when I say leech, I'm not saying in a negative way, but there's people who are like just trying to figure out the world, and
she's a lamppost.
And she's a lamppost for those moths. And then when those moths leave and soak up energy from her, then 3 other people go to that person and soak up that information.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to you and they're willing to vent to you, or say, hey, I need help real quick on this situation, or just, hey, I'm going to vent to you, take that as a compliment. You know what I mean? Because someone's willing to be vulnerable in that moment to talk to you.
Yeah, and who am I? Like, because like I
said, we're just still figuring shit out.
Right, because I could turn around and be like, listen, man, like
But be aware, it is also very draining to help other people, and you need to also recharge your battery.
Right.
You know what I mean? And whether it be meditation or whether it be going to your person for guidance, everybody needs that person.
Right. And this is, shout out to JC. Something I learned from him was that he continually, like, throughout the Gospels, it would continually show that he would be going out and early in the morning and just getting his peace and spending time with God. Like, I don't want to necessarily say that term, because I don't necessarily think that the right thing for everyone to do is to wake up and say a bunch of prayers or whatever. If that is the right thing for you, that's fine. But we all know what it feels like to have a good morning ritual, right?
Yeah.
Like, and part of that is we all see. If you listen to my podcast, I've said this so many times. Like, we use the words that we do for a reason. And when people say, like, I need to wake up and I need to, like, get focused and center myself, it's because, like, And there is a part of me, and like, let's jump to put up the truth behind illusion banner. But there's a part of me, it's like, you
Just
don't-
came in too, by the way. Wait to see it. Looks amazing.
Woo!
Tim got to see it.
I did. We don't know how much. We don't know what all we're made of, right? We don't know how many levels consciousness goes to, or what that even means. So it's to wake up in the morning and be able to focus yourself onto something positive and into something good, or at least get into a good headspace. I mean, it seems like it might be one of the most important tasks of the day, because it can just send you off wherever you don't want to go.
My thing is, I have to arrive for work like a half hour to 45 minutes before my shift starts. And I just sit in my car, I need to look at the building and mentally get myself ready to go in that building to do my job, and realize that I know there may be situations that are going to stress me out in there. There's going to be problems I have to solve. There's going to be maybe people who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and I have to worry about that, like everything. You know what I mean? Like the game planning.
Right.
Like I said, my Batman brain. I have to, if I show up and I'm like, fuck, and I'm rushing and I go in, I punch in and my day starts, I'm a mess.
See, but I don't think anybody would function well under that. And I think some people would argue that they could, but I don't necessarily. I'd be like, I don't think I believe you.
Yeah.
Because I think the more headspace you have, the clearer the glass is, like, you're going to be able to see through it better, So it's like, to take your time and to like, and this is me, like somebody who's in love with like Zen and marijuana, like to just be able to like,
God, I wish. CBD, I'm close enough.
Yeah, that's fine.
Give myself a squirt here.
There you go. We're hanging out. It's a Saturday night.
And real quick, if you are in the chat, we are not completely ignoring you, but with the inner, like, it's not like Truth Behind Illusion or Banging Beers or anything. I don't want to break focus on my guest and read the chat. So when I go back and rewatch this, I will look at your comments based on what's going on. I love you guys to death. I know Alex and Tori are having their own conversation, and it's absolutely fucking beautiful. But for this chat, I don't really interact too much. Maybe towards the end, when we break, we'll read some stuff.
How long have we been doing this? 2 minutes?
About 45.
Oh, okay.
We're not even at our topic yet.
I haven't promoted one thing. Can I promote?
Sure.
I mean, besides my podcast.
Yeah.
But I did come on to talk about, I work for this publishing company called Ember Publishing, and we're currently working on a...
While you're plugging this, I'm going to grab something.
All right, go ahead. I'll just talk right to the camera. I work for this publishing company called Ember Publishing, and we are working on a community collective of art. So if you're a poet, an author, a painter, whatever it is, if you can end up on the internet, into a printed book format, we can get you there. So I think that's linked below. The Ember Publishing stuff. Yeah, so just check that out, or hit me up, just send me a DM, and then we can
do work hand in hand with each other. So if you have a book that you want to promote or put out there, I gave you. Do you like Chetty?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Oh no, it's fine.
I have a flight for us here.
I was just gonna point out how you poured that like a monster.
Oh, you got to get rid of the carbonation.
No, dude, you poured down the glass like a gentleman.
Nope.
Okay, well,
see, if you don't release that carbonation, then you have that full belly feeling.
You might be right on beer. Yeah, you're a smart boy.
If someone gives me
and
a
that
tap,
looks fun.
Yeah, if someone gives me a tap and it's like no head, I swirl my finger around in it to create to release the carbonation. Yeah,
really,
that's what I do.
Huh? Wow. You think the more you know.
Listen, I didn't develop this thing,
but hold on. we were in a good spot. You were talking about working hand in hand. So if there is, I know what Anthony was going to say. So if you are interested in having something published, I would, whatever that is, like, just if you're somebody that's like, I want to get my work into the hands of people, reach out to me and we'll figure out how to do that. And then
even with our sponsor, like Abaddon, what I want to do is if they have a really cool piece of a tattoo, what I think would be fun is like document the tattoo process and then have the artist and the person getting the tattoo talk, and then have the person who's getting the tattoo express why they wanted this on their body.
Yeah.
And like that could be a thing once a month too at the podcast where like, hey, our sponsor Abaddon, like you can win a chance to be on a podcast and tell the story of why you got your tattoo.
Right. Yeah.
I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah. I think, and I was saying this to you a little bit off mic, the idea of like, I think a lot of people are scared to put their art out there just because they don't know how it's going to be received.
And your interview with Watson was really good too.
Oh, thank you.
The owner of Abaddon Tattoos.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, that he was on my podcast as well, but I didn't feel like continuing.
Very spiritual dude. Very.
Yeah, no, he's has such a beautiful, like, just just chill, very like down to earth mind. I was gonna say simple, but it sounds bad. But
like
it's
the
not.
tuning forks when you hear that noise, and that noise is just like that that noise is like it's not annoying, but it's like a very calm noise.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when you see that in a person,
Mm-hmm.
like he reminds me of that.
Well, dude, he's so influenced by Zen Buddhism, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what, like, I mean, because they,
When you're around him, he like even if you're coming in hot,
Mm-hmm.
like and you talk to him,
Mhm.
he immediately brings your energy down to a chill level.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's a very powerful like person. And I
Yeah.
don't even know if he really
I mean,
notices it.
if I can talk like Tori for a second, I'll say his aura,
yeah.
is just strong enough that it would be like,
He
to be
dictates the
able to-
room.
I mean, again, it's the same thing that with Jesus talking about his energy feeling like he was taken from him. It's just like, well, what do you talk about when you talk about energy? You know, like, and that's where I get really like razzled up about like, well, like, and I talk about this on my podcast with my mom, is like, we talk about these things like energy, and it's like, well, what is it? And can I hold it? And like, is it malleable? And like, whatever, like, what is it literally made up of? Because that's the part of like the scientific part of my brain. And I'm such a curious little boy. That's what I've really discovered about.
It is really weird when you meet somebody and you like kind of, because like I said, I meet a lot of people and I talk to a lot of people, and I'm open to talk to a lot of people. But there's certain people when you talk to them or you experience them or you just enter a room with them, you're like, there's something different here. You can 100% feel that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, when people, I mean, a charismatic person who knows how to control a room, like,
It's not even like I can see a charismatic person
That's true.
or like a just an attention seeker.
Mm-hmm.
And those people are just like, to me, their energies are just average energies.
Mm-hmm.
But like example, like a Watson, you walk into a room and you experience a Watson, you're like, this is like, or your mom,
Mm-hmm.
so for me, when I experienced your mom, it was a very like curiosity feeling. Like I'm not 100% what's going on here. I don't feel threatened by it, but it is definitely a powerful feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's interesting.
There's powers at play here. There's I mean, because my mom has this personality where it's just like you can't not be affected by it, you know, and it just to this place of like,
It's hard not to
joy.
be positive.
Right. And like, because she has such and again, like, this sounds like the wrong term, but a lackadaisical approach to life. Like, because she has this mentality, if it's a school, it's like, listen, you're here to learn and you're here to have fun. And I'm pretty sure I talked about this on your podcast before, but the idea of, I remember I said to my mom one time, it's like, well, you know, do you believe in Judgment Day or whatever? And she's like, yeah, and I really look forward to it. And I'm like,
Oh, me too, dude.
well, hold on. She's like,
a cool sounding book.
So hold on. This is exactly how the conversation went the last time, because I remember we started talking about Revelation. But she said,
So metal.
She's like, I'm excited for I'm excited for Judgment Day, because then I get to be able to sit down with God and ask him everything that like I could do better, and like how to like go forward and be a better person from now on. I'm like, that's a brilliant way to look at it, instead of being like, here's everything you ever done wrong, I'm gonna like punish you for it. It's just like, well,
I think living down there is punishment enough.
living down where?
Like here on Earth. I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think everyone. I think everyone should get a pass.
Well, punishment. Well, see, this is, I think,
Especially living in 2020.
here's what happened. Do you have a couple minutes for me to explain where
Absolutely.
like
I'm here all day.
where our current understanding of hell came from? So out of these spiritual traditions, they were really trying to explain mind states and like how it's a psychological perspective on life. And so it's like it's very obvious when a person lives in hell, right? We can see people who are living in hell. We can feel people that are living in hell. We can also feel and see when people are living in heaven, right?
Now, do you feel that hell is an actual physical place that you can go to? What you're buying, what you're selling here, I can buy.
Right, sure. So here's what I'll say is I can only tell you what I've only ever experienced, and it's only ever been being a human being.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as I know, I've never died,
Mhm.
because I don't remember any past lives or anything like that. So any idea of reincarnation or anything like that. Here's what I'll say is, you probably don't end up one place for forever, because that doesn't seem to be the narrative of the universe. Something that I took from the good book was this verse that says everything that there is to be known about God can be known about God through nature. So the question is where is hell in nature, right? So you can very clearly see heaven and pure alignment, but there are times when there's hell, right?
Like tsunamis and tornadoes
And like whatever it
volcanoes
is, like I'm thinking of fire because we're talking about hell, but like
Yeah.
forest fires, you know? So there are times of hell, and if this, realm of Earth is just a spectrum by which all of those things kind of manifest in variant forms, I don't believe that there's a place. Here's mostly why I believe you can't go to a place for forever, because the statement of forever is negated by the fact that you already exist, and therefore you exist separate from the forever that is dictated by that statement.
Yeah.
So you understand, like, there's a starting point, and therefore it's not forever because it has a timeline. And also, like I said, it just doesn't seem to be the narrative. Here's what I will say, though, is that every religion, regardless of how positive it is or not, there does seem to be some sort of, hey, and it's not so much that God's going to judge you. It's just being like, the shit that you did in this life, why would you think that that's not going to come back to haunt you?
Yeah.
And like, obviously, the Christian narrative is very much a forgiving God. And I think the idea of, again, is reconciliation, or like, I like to say it's a tapestry of life. So here's life, and here's you kind of bouncing around wherever it is. And obviously there's going to be times where it's less than good or whatever, and like I'm saying, it's all a path, and we're going from one place to the other, and I don't know when or if that ever stops and what stepping off of that looks like. But here's something else that I will ever also say is that people who have spent the time and done the work of searching the soul and digging through these holy books and really wrestling with it, very rarely do you see people walk away from that saying the God that you're going to meet is vicious.
Yeah.
It's always, this is your friend. This universe is a gift for you. Obviously, you see pastors and people who say that they represent God and talk about condemnation.
They fearmonger.
Right. And like, I understand, because I preached that gospel for a long time as well. But then even during that time, I remember wrestling and sitting with God and just being like, you can't be somebody who condemns somebody to hell for forever. That doesn't match up with the narrative of Christ. And because I'm a Christian, part of the definition of being a Christian is all of our interpretation about God or the highest power or whatever that is that exists beyond words. It's that it's represented fully in Christ.
Mhm.
And I don't see any point in Christ living where he subjugated someone to a place beyond redemption.
Yeah.
So like, and that's when I look at the universe, and I know I've said this on your podcast before because it's one of my favorite quotes from the Bible. It's, what man meant for evil, God meant for good. And so I have this belief that we are all participating within what we would call God. And all of the shit that we're doing now, the good and the bad, it's being summed up in this giant tapestry. It's a piece of blanket being sewn together. It's all just being mixed together for this larger, I want to say good, but it's more than just good. It's, its purpose. It's the meaning of everything that's here, So like, even you think of the worst of people, and I can't speak for God and say why he allows those things to happen, or just kids with cancer or whatever it is. But the Christian hope within me is that exists as something that is larger, as part of a tapestry that I just can't understand in this form.
So here's what if I were to,
I'm sorry, I just went for like 20
no,
minutes.
it's good. If I can buy into the idea of, we'll just go to the idea of Christianity, right? If I can buy into that religion or the world to kind of make sense for me of how I see Christianity, and this is not, I'm not going to come off as a negative or say I don't believe, but here's how I can perceive it, right? So God obviously has his domain, and where we are now currently is a form of hell, or hell itself, right? Now, when people say you have to conquer the devil or conquer your demons or conquer this, a lot of what you do, it's kind of, I don't want to sound insensitive, but like with anxiety and depression, from my experience, a lot of that is either something was putting a barrier in your way, and instead of conquering it, or you did conquer it, it left a scar, or it left that demon latching on of the anxiety and the depression. And your job while you're here is to figure that shit out.
Mm-hmm.
And some people can, and some people can't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I liked how your mom did the example of, a kid 18 years old gets in heroin and dies, and he's gone. But maybe this, like, his purpose was, and I kind of think this is a beautiful way of looking at it. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, maybe, because I've had friends who went that path, and maybe that person's now job is to be a counselor on the other side of helping somebody, or helping somebody that's currently here get through that. You know what I mean? Right. So it wasn't like they died in vain. So I can get behind that because it makes sense or purpose.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that, because, and here's what I'll say is, we don't know what the energy of our life's impact is on people. You know,
I
like,
always say that anything you do from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, and then repeating it every single day on loop, like Groundhog's Day, for the rest of your life, it's like throwing a rock into a puddle
mhm,
or into a lake. You create a ripple,
mhm,
and that ripple can affect something else. So if
mhm.
you're a rock or a blade of grass or a fish, that ripple affects you in a different way. So how you treat somebody
Mhm.
that that don't even think that they may not be insignificant to you or anything, that what they do has an effect on you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And listen, I'm not perfect either. There's been people who have done me wrong or said some things or aren't on my team, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I love you, but I can't help you. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think a great thing that Benjamin said in his podcast with you is, and that's resonated very heavily with me, is I always try to take people by the hand and
Mhm.
get them through a situation, but you
Mhm.
can't. You honestly, you can't.
Mhm.
And that goes for mothers, fathers, brothers, cousins, everything.
Mhm.
People have to figure shit out on their own.
Mhm.
And it's not me saying being cold. I
Mhm.
can be there and talk to you, but at the end of the day, you have to walk your path.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you are the type of person like I used to be, where I have to put the person on my back and help them carry through their journey, they're not learning their lesson, and then you're bogged down and you're stunting your progression because you're trying to help somebody else through their story.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be there as a friend, help them
Mhm.
talk to it, but they ultimately have to figure this out on their own.
Right. And that's, it's the idea of having that person bear their own cross. And, if and Jesus says this, and it's one of his more unsettling things, and he says something along the lines of, if to follow me means that you have to bear your own cross, because he's an example bearer.
Mhm.
And he's saying your own cross, right? And so everyone has their own cross to bear, but there's a beautiful part of the gospel. And I was at a wedding one time, and I was sitting. A lot of Catholic churches or Orthodox churches has what they call the Passion account in like figures or like in stained glass around the church. So it'll be like Jesus being accused by the Jews, to being flogged, to carrying the cross, to crucifixion, to resurrection. And one of these statues that was representing it was of this man named Simon, who's only in the Bible for like a line or two. And while Jesus was carrying his cross up the hill to Golgotha, where he was crucified, he just couldn't do it anymore. He just collapsed. His body wasn't, like, he just couldn't continue. So they pulled a man out of the crowd and they said, "Hey, this is your responsibility now. You have to help this man up this hill." And so this random schmuck who wasn't even from Israel, he was just coming through, had to help Jesus carry a crucifix up the hill. And I sat there in this church and I just started weeping, because I'm like, that's the role of the human being.
Mhm.
Is God is doing whatever God is doing, and we're here. We just got pulled out of a crowd, blasted into this reality, and now we have to carry the weight of divinity. And it's a heavy, thankless job, but it's you're here. You can't what you have no other option.
Yeah.
You can't, like, and this is another thing of like, kind of going back to what we talked about, or what you were saying earlier, is my personal belief is that anything that exists is contained within God. There's this belief called Pan-Atheism, that is the idea of that God exists outside of creation, but that creation emanates from God, and it's an expression of God. And so that's why in the Christian Bible it says that God spoke out creation. So it's the idea of God having whatever was in him completely aligned, and then speaking out his truth and speaking out reality to be what it is. So for me, it's like, you're in the game. You have to play. And what I mean by that is, I don't mean like conform to a religion or whatever, but it means you have to take life seriously.
Mhm.
You're here. You have to do the work that requires you of it. And because my mom and I always have a laugh about this, is like, well, we might as well just do the work now, because where are we gonna go? Like, my mom very much has this perspective of eternal life being something that began a long time ago, and that a path that we're currently on, which is something that I believe as well. And it's just like, well, like, it's similar to the idea of karma and all these things. It's like, if I don't learn it now, I'm probably gonna have to learn it at some point. So I might as well like just buck up and
Yeah.
do it now. I remember hearing this podcast one time, and this guy was talking about how his brother would always force him to. His older brother would always force him to go on like carnival rides or whatever, but he was like, I would always be terrified, but I would never like push back on him because I knew pushing back and saying no, I would look weaker than just going on and doing it and hating it, you know? And that's part of the spiritual side that like people don't really talk is like, there's some things in life that you shouldn't do or that you should do, you know, like to function well, you know, like again, heroin being like, you should do heroin. No, just kidding.
At least once. No.
At least once.
No, don't do that.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but like I don't know. I really do love my mom's explanation of, you know, we don't understand why we're here, right? And so we don't understand what it means to like to be here and to learn things and to like pass that on and like I said, just the psychic ripple that goes through people when like, because you even again the words that we use matter. When people say like they're still with me, it's like, well, what do you mean? Like they're clearly not, you know, like, but there's something within you that resonates.
If someone, if here's the best way I can describe for me and someone who's not really like Christian or spiritual, but I wouldn't say I'm not spiritual. I definitely think I'm on some type of level spiritual. Like I'm open minded to it, right? But like, real example. I listened to your podcast with Ben, right? And his whole thing was you can't hold someone's hand through something you had to figure out on their own. Now Ben is obviously alive and well and doing very well, but his one word that he said resonates with me. And that'll resonate with me for a very long time. And I will probably take that and use a teaching platform from it to help somebody else out in the future.
Right.
Now, if he were to leave in 10 years, right, he's always going to be here in some form because he's left without even knowing it by coming on your podcast and sitting in your confessional room and doing your and
we actually changed spots.
Did you?
Yep.
Nice.
You have to watch Hireth and Other Words podcast to find out where it is though.
Nice. I like how you guys do video and audio. I like that.
Thanks, man. Yeah. I think people, I get more views theoretically on my videos than audio.
Same here.
But I also don't trust. I'm actually like on the fence about moving over completely to YouTube. But I like what you're doing of like
both.
Just
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a little more expensive, the StreamYard, but I like it more.
Okay, well we can talk about it off there.
We're on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube at the moment. Actually, I'm not even on interviews with already people. I just realized that. That's exciting.
What are you on?
I didn't click interviews, so I'm only on the IwEP network.
Oh.
If someone's watching this, Tori, I know you have access. Can you share this to the interviews? Actually, I'll do it real quick.
Okay, I'll talk. Actually, I have something to plug.
Go ahead.
So I like this episode is just me plugging stuff in between you doing stuff. Hey everybody, my name's Tim Mengle. If you don't know this, I don't think Anthony mentioned this yet, but I play music as Churches and Trains.
Links below.
It's linked below. I used to have a song that was a theme song for this very podcast. It's called Medication. Anyways, I am releasing a Churches and Trains, the first 5 years book. So what that means is it's just a book filled with stuff from my Churches and Trains experiences. I have 4 musical releases. When I'm active,
that's me. That's you.
I have 2 full-length albums and 2 EPs currently released, and so the book is filled with lyrics from all of those things, stories from tours that I've been on, pictures from all over the place. And then just kind of a little bit of the background of all of my my musical releases.
I did listen to your album today.
Which one?
I listened to your new album today,
Town Drugs.
I listened to it today before while I was getting prepared for the show.
Do you have the cassette?
No, I listened to it on Bandcamp.
I was going to bring you a cassette. Do you have a cassette player?
I do not, but I will always take a cassette because I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can give you a cassette. I have cassettes if you want cassettes.
Yeah.
But if you are interested in that book, it's linked on my Bandcamp page.
Yes.
So the pre-orders are up there. It's not out yet. I might have to push the release date a little bit.
I think I have all your books too.
Yeah, you definitely do. What a sweetheart. Yeah. This one I'm excited because this is going to be in 3 different formats. So it's going to be in like paper, smaller, like the one that those other ones are.
The poem books.
Right. Then they'll have a larger one and that'll have pictures in it. And then that'll still be soft cover. And then we're going to have a hardback, which will be the same thing and have
one of my favorite pictures for the podcast I use as like the promo now of me. And this is before like we put the curtains and stuff up, but it's just us talking and how you took a photo. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I was going to use that on my post before to come up here, but it wouldn't let me save it off of your profile.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I'll send it to you.
It's fine. I gave up and I was just like, here, because I already posted. I have such a problem. This is, man, if I could hire someone to do marketing for me.
Amen.
Yeah, man. It's so.
Try
and
doing 5 shows.
I know, and I couldn't imagine, man.
Drives me crazy.
Yeah, dude. Well, all right. I'm gonna just start plugging all my stuff. Just
Yeah, let's get it out now.
Yeah. So when you said have doing 5 podcasts, I was actually thinking I'm starting a Patreon and for my podcast, Higher with Another Words, and one of the benefits of signing up for that is that you get a bonus episode of my podcast, just kind of me talking about like just things from all the episodes that I learned, like because a lot of times I'll put up my episodes and then like people will write me and be like, oh, I have a question about this, or they'll be like, I do this, and like I would like to share those things with people. So that's like the episode that I'm going to be doing. That is just kind of a recap. And then also like answering whatever questions people have, like regardless of the topics. And then there's another.
So here's my question to you.
Sure.
As this is a content creator question.
Uh-huh.
How are you going to go about giving them an exclusive interview or exclusive show?
Well, you can, so via Patreon, you can like you can do
like drop a file in there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just do it like that.
So I was thinking about doing the same thing. I made a post like, who'd be interested in Patreon, and it was like Jiminy Crickets. Like no one said a word. So it's like, all right, I guess no one's really interested. But like I said, I feel like right now, I'm very thankful for the people who do listen. But I will say, it's weird because the numbers are going up, right? So like YouTube is doing better than it's ever done. Twitch is doing a little better. Audio plays are, I think, at their highest right now. Facebook is good. I don't really look at the numbers though. I'm gonna be honest. Like I look at them like maybe a couple weeks ago, and I was like, wow, that's pretty good. Like I didn't think it was that good. But the biggest thing, especially if you're a content creator or you're a musician or you're anyone, an artist, for the people who take their time out to listen, it is so important to us. Maybe just for our egos, just a little bit of feedback. Even if you just send a message, be like, hey man, I listened to the episode. This one part was good, or I didn't like this part. It helps because it's like, oh shit, okay, what I'm doing has meaning, or someone's enjoying it.
I was at the coffee shop the other day, and Bobby Weaver's mom was there, and we were just like chit-chatting or whatever, and she's like,
terrify you when someone comes to you, I listen to your podcast, and you're like, fuck, what episode?
Well, not necessarily, because I feel like I cover less. Mine's a little bit more blue than yours.
Oh my god, mine's rainbow colored. You never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah. But no, and she was like, oh, I was listening to your podcast with, blah, 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 blah. I really enjoyed it. And I'm just like, what? Like you listen? Like, and I can see, like you're saying, like I can see numbers and I see people are like engaging, but
you
like
have no idea who they are.
Yeah, and
They're just numbers.
And I want to know who you are. And it's not because of like, I mean, A, I want to say thank you. And B, it's like, well, what do you want? Like, why are you here? Like, this is for you. Like, let's engage. Like, and that's again, bringing it back into my Patreon. Like that's why I'm setting this up, is to try to build a little bit of a community around this thing. And another benefit of signing up is a podcast that I'll be doing once a month with my mom, which again,
exciting.
Yeah, that alone is like worth the price of admission. Because I mean, my mom has been doing spiritual classes for like people have been paying her for almost my entire life, so it's like there's just so much wealth and experience there for someone who's a psychic and a medium. Like there's just the spiritual. Yeah, I find myself being, I don't like it necessarily, but I find myself being more and more in love with like heritage and like being able to like pass things on. And the reason I don't say that is because there's a part of me that really wants to keep the punk rock in me alive. And I know heritage doesn't really sound like a punk rock word.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, that's like the two wolves meme. Like the two wolves that are like raging inside of me is like a punk rock kid and like Saint Francis or like Jesus, something like that.
I'm a punk rock kid and a hip hop kid with a hair metal kid and also a heavy metal kid.
Hey, you can be as much as
pop
you want.
kid. And just one of my wolves has black eyeliner on. God, smeared all over.
When you said the second you said punk pop, I got hungry for pizza.
Really?
Yeah, man.
What is your go-to pizza in the area?
I mean, Roma is where I'd like really like to go. I end up getting like,
just because Eddie Collins makes it, touches his beautiful hands.
No, that's
I thought that was Roma.
No,
he's at DYP or OIP.
OIP, that's it. My dyslexic brain really.
There's a wrestling team named DIY or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, we should have pointed out how I poured my glass. It was like nice and gingerly.
Yeah, you want that all.
You know what? Screw you. I'll be bloated later.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
And all the flavor comes out when you do that.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to get off my chest before we continue to have this.
We dive into some other nonsense. Not nonsense, but
just wherever we can dive. I mean, really deep, or as far as you would want to go. Yeah.
When are you coming on Truth Behind Illusion?
I don't know. I remember we talked about having me on to talk about human sacrifice.
Human sacrifice.
I would love to talk about that.
We're doing this Friday coming up. Yeah, it's coming up. This Friday coming up, we're doing an episode on MK Ultra.
Okay. That's exciting.
Very interesting.
Well, before we go into that, I'm going to just say what I'll say when you talk about, because before we got on mic, I was going to say to you that I wanted to ask you about being a part of Truth Behind the Illusion. And that's the reason I wanted to ask you that is because the whole time that I've known each other, you've said this, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And
I'm very open-minded.
Right. And here's what's wrong with the word spiritual or spirituality is that it seems to have this connotation of somebody who looks something like me, of just like, I love yoga and eating vegetarian diets, like
I make crepes.
And I make crepes. Like, and I work for just anything indie. No, like that's a different thing. But no, but it looks,
and my guitar has a fucking a piece of twine
again,
as a
now it's
guitar
just
strap.
now it's just me as a person. But no, that with spirituality, that there is this connotation of like you need to look a certain way or like whatever. But for me, when I hear the word spirituality, it just really means, what does it mean to be a person?
Yeah.
Like, because regardless of if you like it or not, you are a spirit, because the you that observes everything can't be held. It's the wind. It's just, it's vapor, it's ethereal. And what is that if it's not a spirit? And then that thing has to coerce its way through, physical reality. And that's where we have things like philosophies or traditions or religions, whatever it is, to kind of hand off to, because imagine if you were just born into a society that didn't have any like tradition or like passed on knowledge from people, because you're just fucked, like, and that's what you're left with. And I hate it because I sound, again, like the punk rock in me is like, you sound like a conservative. Shut the hell up. But it's not that. Obviously, there's an openness and an inclusionness to like grow and to learn and to continue. But for me personally, man, like I have had no interest in heritage or like really being curious as to where I come from. But like maybe it's just getting old. I just turned 31. Like,
I'm really into heritage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, this is going to be controversial because you're not allowed to say this in today's, but I'm very proud of my heritage, right? And I know, like, being a white guy, you're not supposed to say that because some of our heritage was dipshits back in the day.
Sure, but like when you said that, I didn't see you as a white person. I saw you as a human being.
Yeah,
that were like,
that's how I see it as well.
I know,
but
that's the way it should be seen.
But like, I grew up as Italian Irish kid. You know what I mean? Like, and then if you just look at the Irish heritage in our area and just see like struggle and hurt and pain and just fucking fighting back and just like, I'm not taking this shit. Like, it's inspiring to me. Like, no matter, even if everything around you is crumbling, like as long as you keep your mind right, you can get through it. You know what I mean? Like Italians, they like,
well, and also like, none of us would be here if an ancestor, I mean, obviously like slaves withholding, but like people that everyone, and again, slaves and indigenous people withholding is like everyone chose to come to this country from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like
for the most part.
Again, like what I'm saying, like obviously there's cases where that's not true, but I mean, my ancestors migrated here, from the Ukraine. So it's like almost like far landlocked Europe. And somehow, and I always wonder this, I'm like, because I don't know, because something was going on in their life that they thought that the best thing that they could do was to spend all the money that they had to travel across Europe, to get a boat, to go to America, or to fly, like however, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
That's why everyone's story is so interesting to me.
Dude, like, and it's just, and everyone takes it for granted. Obviously, like I think people are some people are raised with very like, you're an Oxford and you've always been an Oxford. Like,
and then you spit on a stick and send it into a laboratory and they're like, you're not even close.
Right. Yeah. And it's just like, well, what's a name?
I knew someone who like, they're like, I'm super Irish. And they're like, and they sent in the mail and they're like, you're not even close to Irish. And they're like, what? My whole life's been a lie.
Well, here's like, that's again, like, that's part of the reason that I like didn't really push those things so hard, because I was like, it's just another trap, like your culture or whatever it is, just another thing.
Some people, sorry, I argue with Tori with this all the time, but like sometimes culture and zodiac and star signs, I think people get caught up like, oh, today I'm supposed to be a jerk. Like, no, just because you're fucking horoscope, just be who you want to be.
Right.
Like, because some people, I'm not saying her, but I'm saying people who are really into the zodiac or the star
Mhm.
signs and stuff will be like, I'm stubborn, I'm a Capricorn. Like,
Right,
no,
yeah.
like you don't have to be what someone tells you have to
Right.
be.
Well, and also like I was thinking about this, just seeing
I love you, Tori.
just seeing memes that are like, I'm a whatever. So like, or just seeing
No,
like,
you're just a bitch.
it's
just because your fortune cookie said it doesn't mean you have to be that.
right. And that was like, I said this on my bonus podcast. If you sign up for my Patreon,
link below.
I was talking about how I do really want to explore astrology and all of these things because I don't have a good understanding of it. The problem is that I not only Tori and like my mother withstanding, like everyone is just it's the same as like talking to a fundamental Christian, right? It's just like
She starts talking. I'm like, I look at her like, word. Like,
well, and it's also
or I give her the eye, like the I don't believe you eye, and she's
Well,
and she gets like, oh.
Here's something that I learned when I was over in Taiwan is I worked for this cafe where it was a Christian run cafe. So part of
You can't shake those.
Huh?
You're just all about cafe life,
Dude, and I don't drink coffee. It's the craziest thing. I'm just gonna work in coffee shops for forever. But I used to be able to speak Chinese a lot better than I currently can. And at this coffee shop, a lot of people came in to practice English, but some people would just come in to like have like a conversation with somebody because that's what we were like advertising was like come and talk to people. And just we got a lot of people who just wanted to talk,
I missed the Conversation Cafe in Pottsville. That was a really good time.
That was, I never went, but it was definitely a good idea to be able to have like a place that people can get together and anyways, I would be sitting and I would be talking to people and I would overhear conversations and I would hear people from, America or the West or whatever trying to preach, quote unquote, preach the gospel to a Taiwanese person. And they'd be using words like resurrection or crucifixion. And I'm like, there's no way that person knows and knows what that word is and B understands the gravitas of the word, right? Like the depth of the word. So for me, when this is why my podcast is set up the way it is, because I want to be able to talk to anyone and just be able to be like, well, what is the phenomenon that you're experiencing? What words would you put it into? What is it similar to these words? Because these are the words that I have.
I think you do a great job at it.
Thank you. I mean, like, again, it's been something that I've been intentional about is just, and what's really funny is that the people that would condemn me for having like open conversations are the people who train me how to be able to like have good conversations and like to listen to other people. And so I don't know, they trained me to be a weapon against them, I guess.
Yeah.
But I did one of my podcasts. I don't think you've gotten to it yet, but I did one with a guy that I used to work with over in Taiwan. And
really?
Yeah. And so we started talking about like
over the phone.
We did it like over Skype. He lives in Oregon right now. So when I lived out there, I would hang out with him from time to time. I'm gonna just plug his podcast. It's called Looming in the Numinous.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's on one of my podcasts. His name's Mark Dillon, good buddy of mine. He's actually listened to one of these podcasts before.
Really?
Yeah. So shout out to Mark Dillon.
Love you, Mark.
I like to call him Ace because he used to have an A as his middle name, like on Facebook.
I said I'm not reading the chat, and I look over. I say it says "fuck you, Sagittarius."
We're both Sagittarius.
Look, I could do this too in this.
Do you just delete it?
No, I can put her.
Oh, good.
So the cool thing is like if someone's commenting on Twitch or something, I can take their post and just kind of put it in the chat.
That's cool.
So if I respond to it on Facebook and someone doesn't know what I mean, I can bring everyone together.
That's great, man. But yeah, I don't know. I think communication is key, right? And being able to like, because it's not about the word, it's about the experience that you're trying to relay with the word. And this is the reason I brought up my podcast with that guy is because I don't really like ever talk about my time over there because it's mostly because, and I don't want to sound like I'll let this sound however it sounds. It's like I have very little people that can relate to living on the other side of the world, going to a Bible academy that was kind of a cult, like on the borderline of that.
Really?
And like, yeah, man, it was
like Waco shit.
No, it wasn't that bad, but it got investigated by like people who would like study cults and was like, is this like, and they said it wasn't, but it had a lot of the characteristics
it was like one step over.
Yeah.
Like one step behind.
Right.
Yeah.
what saved it really is that it was so far.
I would love to like kind of infiltrate a cult and just experience it.
Well, it's, man, Jamie and I watched a
I have Trump friends, so that's kind of close.
Well, I mean,
shots fired.
I mean, leftist friends are, I heard,
They're just as bad.
they're just as bad. They're just as much as a cult. Yeah, and
any extremists are bad.
yeah, man, like if you see, this is, like you asked me earlier, like, would you identify as a Christian or whatever? It's like, yeah, I'll say that because,
I
like,
just identify as a human.
right, and it's, see, but here's the problem is with that mentality is it's like, yeah, but how am I going to navigate that? Like, you're a human. That's such a broad topic.
I'll cross that bridge when I get to it, guy.
That's true. I think I got my foot stuck in your chair.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
I got it out.
There's someone that you
That's
should
awesome.
definitely. I don't know. He was commenting. I wasn't reading everything. I was kind of peeking at the names, but someone who, remember I told you like everyone has their beacon they go to.
Mhm.
So another person I go to very heavily is Alex. His name's Alex Watt.
Okay.
And he runs a wrestling company and he's been doing
Nice.
really cool stuff. But he's starting, so he's into pro wrestling, but he's also into mental health and getting himself better physically as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he's doing this thing called High Tension Wellness, which is at his wrestling company, but a wellness side. And they have this cool yin yang logo they're doing.
Yeah.
And you should definitely have him on your show, like
Alright.
just like over Skype.
Yeah.
I think you guys would be a good conversation.
All right.
Kind of like how we were put onto each other through
Yeah.
like a second party. Like you guys would be good together, and then we did it. And we're like, oh my god, this is true. You
Reach
know?
out to me, or I'll reach out to you, Mr. Alex.
Yeah.
You're commenting down
No,
there.
he just did. He said, "I love you, man." I think it'd be a cool thing,
I
and
love
then he
you
could,
too.
and then he can plug his wellness podcast on Hireth, and then you guys can kind of work with each other.
I love how I'm going to say this as somebody who can't tell you. I mean, I do yoga, so I don't really know if that counts as like working out, but like,
I'm gonna start a huge yoga program.
are you really?
Yeah, Monday. I'm dead serious. On Monday.
It's the time of year, baby.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important that like we get this, because I see this from when I look out like into the sea of people. I see people are kind of conflicted between this correlation between body and spirit, because they're like, I know I'm a thing, and I know I have a body. Is there a connection between the two? And the answer is yes. It's all one. Like this whole thing, like it's a pack, like it's one solid package. And so like it's not just about like, and this is kind of the downside of like people who are like as intense spiritual as I am, is I'm not into like working out or being fit by like any stretch.
Obviously, I take it super serious.
So I mean, but again, like you don't know how powerful the mind is and like how much energy it
A
takes.
lot of people just shut the mind off, and then they'll work out like crazy, and they'll be like, "Why am I so fucking sad?" I'm like, "You got to work on something else too, man."
Right. Well, yeah, it can't just be like, well, you got to understand. And this is why, like, again, I like my perspective is like, I know that my spiritual journey to some degree is only because I had the angst and the hurt inside of me that I needed to deal with, that my body shot me off on this journey to find the solution to, you know? And so I think whatever it is that you find yourself doing repetitively, it's because you think that it's for your best.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always necessarily mean that that's true. Because there was a time just recently, I'm come out of it, thank God. Like I was just eating so much, and like it's because I had like I had good income coming in, so it's like I don't have to worry about that. Like I can just buy whatever and just eat it. But then I'm just like, well, is because like you're like, why are you doing that? And like, why is it something that you're continually going back to? And then it's just like, well, you're just being honest with yourself. It's just like, well, I'm sad, or like, I just like doing this thing, whatever it is, you know? And I heard somebody say this one time, and I'm just going to make it my own, but I wish that we treated mental illness the same way that we treated a broken arm.
Yeah.
You know, like to just be like, hey man, like you need to do the things that'll get that fixed. But I understand right now that it's not working, you know? So like the same way we don't expect people with broken legs to like go to their jobs for a week, like you should be allowed to like, the problem is like getting out of it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are told like you're allowed to sit with your pain, you're allowed to be sad, whatever, but it's like, well, you shouldn't stay there, you know, like, and what I always say is like, you're allowed to visit depression, you can't live there. You shouldn't live there.
A lot of people live there.
Right.
Yeah.
And like depression is just a warning signal that something else is wrong. I think people are worried too much about the fact that like, oh, I'm depressed, but it's the fact they're pointing to something else that you need to course
Figure out.
correct. Right.
Yep.
And that's, again, like I've said this before in a bunch of podcasts, is like that's your body trying to course correct, you know? So it's like anxiety and depression, these are things that rise up within you because your body is trying to set you on the right and again, it's manifesting as an emotional thing. So it's not like there are things in your actual world that you can do with your physical body that will change your mental state, you know? Yeah. That's for everyone watching the video
audio.
feed.
Yeah,
Hi, Mom.
that's for you guys.
Is my mom watching? Did she comment at all?
No, she did not. Someone's on the IwEP network commenting. I'm not sure who it is.
And like as you?
Yeah. So like, so I give everyone access. So I look at the network as a family, right?
Yeah.
So if you're part of Truth Behind Illusion, I feel like you're also a part of Tornado Tag, and you're also a part of Interviews Everyday People, and everyone. And it's crazy because like I have people who are part of the family who are not even on camera. You know what I mean? Like there's people behind the scenes who are part of this network, and they're just as important as anyone else who's on camera, or it might be a wife of somebody. Like we have a fucking, like, I will say this second year going into the third year, it has been amazing. Like we had like little get together of the podcast family, and we've been hanging out and doing things, and it's fucking beautiful. It's a thing that you guys don't really get to see because we don't film it. And I know other content creators will be like, we need a camera there, and I was like, nah, let's just enjoy it with each other. Like,
absolutely,
it's such a beautiful
not
thing.
Everything has to go on social media.
Yeah, so everyone has access. Oh, it's Tori, but everyone has access to every page on the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just kind of, because a lot of the biggest thing for the longest time for the network was, well, it's yours. We're part of your thing. And I'm like, no, if you're taking time and leaving your family or your wife, or your wife's a part of this too, because she's allowing you, or your husband, like Bree and Andy, your significant others letting you leave, not letting you, but they're accepting the fact that you're not going to be spending time with them to come do something with us. So I value your time because you're taking it away from your, you know what I mean? And I want your significant other who maybe doesn't want to be on camera to be just as included into this family as you are.
Right. Yeah. And I think, again, if we were talking about the idea of like, how do you better yourself in this new year? How do you kind of walk into
that was
it?
my segue. Look at that. I like that.
We're killing it tonight with promotions and segues. Seamless. # seamless.
So real quick, before we get into the new year, how was 2020 for you? So I know the overall consensus is we're happy it's gone, but I want to let people know too that it's not gone unless you want it to be gone. Now, obviously, the pandemic's not going anywhere until the higher powers that be that we can't control can fix that, and we can. You know what I mean? Obviously, we can do things to help curb that as well. But even if you practice everything to the book, you're still a coin flip away catching it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so it's because eventually you have to leave your house to get groceries, or to get gas, or to go to work, or do something. So it is what it is at this point. But
here's what I'll say about 2020 is that I hope that I have the same mentality on that I do as my whole life. And this might just sound like a cop-out answer, but it's like it was a roller coaster, but roller coasters are supposed to be fun, right? I'm not necessarily a fan of roller coasters, but there was a lot of ups and downs and trials and tribulations. And like, I can only say this from a certain perspective in my life, but I have lived through enough and lived long enough to know that whatever is happening in my life personally is only happening because it's making me stronger, and it's happening to build me up. And so I can say that about me personally. And I do, if I would be completely frank and honest, believe that echoes out into society and all those things. So yes, things are bad. And things, they go up and they go up and down on this roller coaster. But again, the destination is supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be lightheartedness and whatever. And like, for me, man, this is something to me that I've never experienced up to this point in my life. Pennsylvania from Oregon was I wanted to be able to set down some roots. And like, I bought a house this year with a girl that I've been dating for a couple of years, like that's what
beautiful person. I never really had a conversation with her. I would like her. I'd like to have you and her on the show.
I'm going to have her on the podcast. I
don't know much about her. I just see her. I give her a hug, and then
I know she's so shy and like just bashful that it's just, and I'm the opposite of that. So
That's
it's just
Heidi.
right. Yeah. And like, it's a problem. Like this, like, because here's why it's an issue is because I look at Jamie and I'm like, she's a better artist than me. She's a better poet than me. I think she's probably smarter than me. Like her ego is definitely probably a little
What's
bit
your
more
one song you
balanced.
wrote about her in your new album?
The last one?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, because I love her and like, you know,
It was a beautiful song.
thank you, man. Like she has come into my life and done something that like no other person has ever done. Like and I hate saying that because I know people who are single or like whatever like are gonna hear it and just be like, man, like this is a person like you're just promoting
Yeah.
a product that I can't just go out and get.
Yeah.
And like I'm not trying to do that because I'm sympathetic, but also what I would say to people who are single is like you have so much freedom to like explore who you are as a person. Like
Mhm.
go ahead and do that, you know? But having this opportunity to like really like just intentionally love someone, you know, like earlier we were talking about like getting frustrated and learning how to vent that properly. Like for me, when I get overwhelmed about like whatever, anything, something that I always try to tell myself, and it's just, you're not allowed to take this out on Jamie. This isn't Jamie's fault. Like she's not
So
here.
you can't hit your wife? Shit. I'm joking.
One
I
of the-
don't beat my wife.
That's
Heidi would
good.
beat me if anything.
Yeah, she definitely seems like she's sassy enough to.
She's Asian, dude. She knows like karate and shit. I'm not fucking with her.
But no, man, I like she is just such a humble spirit, and like for me, one of the greatest joys in life is watching her enjoy life. Like
One of my favorite photos I've ever taken is when you were, dude. And I want to say real quick, like when you asked me to come host your book release thing, it meant a lot to me.
Thanks, man.
Because like there's a lot of people.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the area who say they like the podcast and they like what I'm doing and they're about it, but like not everybody can like reciprocates that. You know what I'm saying? Like, or
Sure.
welcomes me on their things, or thinks of me first when it comes to like I'm doing something new. I should come promote it on his thing. You know what I mean? And the more I think that's a thing, we're like, oh, I have a new album, or I have a new this. I should go to interviews. You know what I mean? Because like obviously everybody wants the WNEPs and the PA lives, but my goal here is
I get so much more excited. I've been on like WNEP a couple times, but I get so much more excited about this
yeah.
because that's just not my demographic. Like
Yeah.
the people
But it meant a lot that you're like, I'm gonna release this book and I want you to come. And I was terrified. Like, and I think someone said to me to like, dude, you're like, someone said to me you're very natural at just being in a room and I'm just like, I wish you were inside my brain because it was just fucking sirens and bells going off like a nuclear reactor. But it's like I just got to figure this out, you know.
But it's the part of, but it's the overcoming of that is.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. That same feeling of just like being on the spot and just being like, oh my god, like all cylinders on go is the same thing that a weightlifter feels when they're just like, I need to do one more rep.
Yeah.
You know, it's that like you're at the breaking point where it's like, listen, everything that you've practiced is for this point right now.
Yeah.
You know, like. And it's the sink or swim moment, you know. And
I'm very trial by fire. That's just kind of like me as at life. But
yeah,
so
me too.
just going to 2020, like once I knew it was kind of going to shit, like I lost my job.
Yeah, I guess I should ask you how I'm gonna interview this everyday person.
Yeah, that's me. So I lost my job. But I will say this: like where I lost my job, obviously government assistance helped me stay on my feet, and I wasn't just going to accept a job anywhere. Like I was like, if I'm going to do something, I want to do something I'm passionate about. But I also want to challenge myself at a new job. And when I left where I'm currently at, I'm not going to say names or anything, but when I left where I was currently at, I felt like I left a lot on the table. Like I worked really hard to get to a certain spot, and it just never happened to me. And whether it been me as a person, like I'm looking inward, like maybe I just wasn't a good person, or I wasn't doing a good job, or somebody just didn't want me to be better. Whatever the case may be, I needed to now reflect, figure things out. And it was kind of weird because, and you can ask people who was close to me, I was like, I want this job again. And I remember people be like, are you sure you're able to do that with your disorder and everything going on? And the last time you were there, it wasn't great and this and that. And I was like, no, I have to conquer this. This is something that always got the best of me. And I want to change it. But then the entire time I was waiting for it to happen, it wasn't happening, but I just kept trying and applying and applying. And then it ended up happening. But then the entire time that was happening, I really felt like the network turned into this thing that maybe the people who listen and watch every week, maybe you didn't see it. And if you did, awesome. Maybe some fucking feedback. And I'm joking, but the bond we built as a network and as a family, it would have never happened if 2020 wasn't a thing. You know what I mean? It gave
Right.
everyone a time to kind of sit back, reflect, figure out who they were, and just like going back to the Jesus thing. Now, obviously, this is not coming from someone who's a huge believer, but like when the person touched out and they needed that energy,
Mhm.
I felt like going into 2020, if I was going to lead this network and do this thing and start my cult, network, I needed to be that person. You know what I mean? I needed to, and I couldn't hold someone by the hand to make them better. I just needed to be the lightness in a dark room that inspired other people to want to do better things. And if
Right.
I can show that I'm taking this seriously, because
Mhm.
when this first started, man, I'm not saying the people that were involved weren't taking it serious.
Mhm.
I think everybody was, but I think it was just kind of like, oh, this is just a fun thing we do. And now
Right.
it's people are like, oh shit, he's trying something here and it could be something. You know what I
Right.
mean? And then everyone kind of like really stepped their game up. And it was just for me, I know like people are dying and all that, and political shit was all terrible.
Mhm.
But for me on a personal level, I think I got a lot accomplished in 2020.
Right.
And I'm going into 2021 with some goals.
Well, here's the thing, man. Is I feel like a lot of the conversation that I've been having is something similar to. I hear that from a lot of people.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't great for everybody, but it was pretty good for me
Mhm.
on multiple tiers of reasons why. And that's like that for me. That's would be like, yeah, well, yeah, that's kind of the point of the year. Like it's the point of the bad to get worse so that the good can get better. You know. And I want to kind of just touch on this because I wanted to say it earlier, and you just kind of got back to it, and it was something that I learned from the good man himself. Again, Jesus.
I thought you meant
Is-
me.
No,
Sorry.
sorry. I'll say something I learned from you eventually. How to work like a goddamn dog, like, and I don't mean like that in a bad way, but just like it's so inspiring to watch and just be like, man, if you can do that, then I just not to say that if you can do
No,
it, I can
yeah,
do it. You know,
yeah,
I know that you'll accept
absolutely.
that in the right way. But something that Jesus did was, and I was thinking about this the other day, is that he surrounded himself with, you have the disciples. So you have 12 people, but he had what he called the inner circle. And that's like, those are the people that he could like really be like him, the truest form of like Jesus as a man, like it wasn't just like, because all those other people were kind of learning from him and whatever. And that's kind of the burden of the leader is like, if you're leading, then like the people are looking to you for these things. So it's hard to find people that are like, to truly engage with those like on a similar like not just on a tier but like a perspective level, right? Like I don't know what it's like for my boss Abby and Bobby to oversee how many ever employees we have and have to worry about like their jobs and oversee all those things. That's a perspective things, right? So for the people that they can go to relate to have to be able to have a similar perspective. Like I said with Taiwan is like it's hard for me to talk about it because it's there's no one there that like can really
Can
like
relate to what you
right
went through.
besides the people that went through it with me, so like even I did that podcast with my buddy. I was trying so hard not to use like the colloquialisms that we use with inside of that organization, and just be like, well, no, this is what this means. And like it wasn't a traditional Bible school by any means, so like trying to explain this to people who don't know it, like but okay, all that to say is I think what's very important is to build yourself something that looks similar to that, even if you're not necessarily a leader, but to have a small group of friends, but to also have something within that is like much more personal, so that like you're just surrounding yourself on like just on multiple levels, like close and intimately, but also like socially.
Mhm.
So that's what I would just find the people in your life who are genuinely
Pick your classmates.
right. That's as my mother would say. I
There
wonder
you
if
go.
she's listening. Mother, are you listening? Have you said anything?
She has not.
No, just comment wherever you are.
Yeah, she'll probably watch later.
Um,
So what are your goals going into this year? What are some personal goals for you?
It's a good question. I feel like I should know that. I think like for me, man, it's part of it is it's less bitterness and resentfulness and a lot more of like learning to love the things that don't necessarily look lovable or like or whatever, and that's so what that looks like is part of that is when my girlfriend and I bought this house, we moved in 2 dogs, and I've never lived with dogs before, so when she goes to work, like I have to take them out and like feed them and all those certain things. And so it's like I'm intentionally being like, I'm loving this person by loving these things that they're not
creatures.
these creatures. I mean, they're like I've enjoyed and I have a really fun time. She like
What kind of dogs are they?
oh Lord Jesus, one's a husky
Ooh,
and the other
I love
is
huskies.
a beagle and a Scuffles Gefont. I can never say what it is. It's a mutt. It's
It's a
mix.
Nazi.
It's a, no.
It sounds Nazi. It sounds very German.
No, she looks like a very Scottish dog. But yeah, they're very precious. One's very like the husky's like bigger, and like the little one's like just. I was just saying to Jamie today that I would love to see a animated movie about the two of them and their little adventures.
Yeah,
I find myself singing to them like all the time.
I sing to my dog all the time.
And then when I'm like out in public hanging out with people, I'll just start singing about them, and I'm like, "You're insane! Like this is what insane people do."
Most people think I'm insane. Tori says she got to go. So, I love you, Tori. Thank you for hanging out. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Love you, Tori.
If you are watching, just say hi in the chat. Let us know you're here.
So, like for me, that's one of the things is like being intentional. I don't know why, but I find myself on this. The desire of like as high as I can transcend, I want my roots to go down just as far.
Yes.
So what I mean by that is like I want to be able to be the best version of myself and to have the highest version of myself, the thing that manifests at all time. But I also want that person to not be. I want to be engaged with society and reality and my emotions and this community. I mean, I don't just mean like a virtual community, but I mean like Pottsville and like Schuylkill County. Like I may have said this on here before, but like this, I don't know if you can like really quantify this into a goal, but if there is a goal that I have for this year is to really magnify this mentality. And I remember one time I was walking around Pottsville and I had this thought. I'm like, I don't look at these buildings the same way that I do when I walk around a random town in Utah. So I was in a just this random town in Utah and just looking at it and just being like, I'm never going to be here again. I'm never going to be
You're looking at where you
again.
can set up shop.
Well, that, and
I do.
Well, sure. I mean, you're building a nest, right?
I look at a building and I'm like, if this podcast ever becomes successful, my big thing would be not doing it here. Obviously, I want a studio. And like, if you kind of watch like Barstool Sports or you watch like these big networks, you're like, man, they went from doing it out of their garage or their kitchen to then being in a studio. And you don't even necessarily have to be there. And there's a producer and there's someone who's doing this show. And someone else can go in there and record at a studio and do this awesome thing. And if you want to go in and use my studio, like, you know what I mean? Like I look at like a place in Pottsville, I'm like, man, like that building would be an awesome location for our network. You know what I mean? Like,
I remember I messaged you one time being like, hey, let's start a radio station. Because I really like that idea in principle, but probably like not like, I love the idea if I could just sit down and be like, I'm just playing local music, places like just from people with like PA or just small independent artists. And like in between all of that, we're just going to have conversations like this, like which is what radio used to be. It would be like, hi, whatever. Let me tell you my thoughts about anything, you know, like, and that truly was like the first form of podcasting a long time ago.
Talk radio.
Yeah. And people like would just sit around and just listen to this random schmuck, just be like, this is my thoughts about the Yankees or whatever it is,
and then there's Howard Stern.
Yeah. And then like, obviously there's a great progression there. But I really like that because I don't know. I just really love the engaging with the different forms of speech and different forms of communication, because music is definitely a form of communication, and so is this.
So my goals for this year,
again, I should have asked you.
That's right. No,
let's do this organically. But but that's just what I got going on. What about you, Anthony? What are some goals that you have for 2020?
So I want to lose weight. I want to get down. I'm currently,
that's another one of mine.
I'm sitting at 220.
Okay.
220 of just
2020, baby.
I'm just cultivating mass of just sexy men, dad bod, and I don't even have kids. So I want to get down to 185. So I want to get around there.
How do you plan on doing that?
Not do as much as this.
I know
that and eat right.
This is the most beers I've drank, and I can't even tell you how long. No, it's
I
okay.
do that to people.
No, but this I'm playing the role of Jesus here because I'm like, hey, when in Rome,
Yeah,
baby.
yeah.
When with the people who drink.
and I keep snapping my fingers and making more appear. So yeah, I want to eat.
Shout out to Black Rock Brewery and your nice mug.
Yeah, I got that.
Anyways,
I got that. They're one of their grand openings. So yeah, the Black Rock beer, beer glass in a Pottsville Yingling beer.
I'm all about local, man.
Yeah,
Like, and even when I lived over in Taiwan, a lot of the tattoos that I got on my leg were about Pennsylvania.
really.
Yeah, like I have a keystone.
I want a
and
keystone on my hand to cover up my brand.
I've never noticed it. You know, I have a tattoo there. It's a small little X.
I have a cigarette lighter burn.
Why'd you do that?
I was drunk. St. Patty's Day weekend was crazy. Yeah. So at Woody's Bar, that was our idea. I have a little. It looks like a chicken foot or a Jedi logo, but it's just a lighter burn. Yeah. And I'm the only one who has that burn because every time they kept doing it to somebody else, they would pull away. Ooh, it's hot. And I'm like, stop being a baby. Just do it. If you're gonna do it, do it. And they're like, oh yeah, you're gonna do it. So they literally like lit it on fire and then out it on my hand. I just stared at them. And they're like, you're gonna move your hand? I was like, nope. And then I moved it and I was like, oh, that's gonna be with me a while. Yeah. But yeah, so I want to go down to 185. And then I have 2 small podcast goals. I want to, like, if Facebook numbers.
I thought you were going to say that you were starting 2 small podcasts. I'm
no,
like,
no
way,
no more
podcasts.
No more podcasts. I think
You're like that person that I have to tell to stop having kids.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think you have enough.
I have too many kids. I just killed a kid this year.
Oh no,
not a legit kid. I killed one of my podcasts.
Oh God, I thought you wait.
Yeah. I there's maybe some sub podcasts I want to do that are a part of the same podcast. Like I was thinking about doing one with Heidi, but it's under the Not Cool in High School banner, but not being the Not Cool in High School banner. Maybe if we do a Patreon, if that's something you guys are interested in. Yeah.
Here's what I'll say.
I can't even get people to buy a T-shirt. But anyway,
dude, here's what I'll say. Say like it. I would say something like a conversation between you and your wife is something that's should be special.
I want to review movies with her.
Yeah. So here's what I would say, man. Like, just do that as a more of a passion project than like can be, and just be like, this is something that me and Heidi do because we love each other, and this is great. And like, then just throw it on this Patreon thing and be like, listen, you want to enjoy this fun content? Like, because I had that same thought with my mom. Like, my mom and I have such a good dynamic and such a good conversation that like people should pay for it. You know, like, and this is the problem. Like, we talked about this like hours ago, but like. The idea of all I have to offer is words. And so my mom, like, she has the tarot card reading, and this is like, so she has that, like,
I have my own deck now.
Oh, do you really?
Tori bought me a deck.
I don't have mine. And this is the reason is because I'm waiting to find the right one. My mom was like, I can just give you one. I'm like, no, like, I want to find one in the wild.
Don't you have to, someone has to gift you your first deck, don't they?
Something
Isn't
like
that the rule?
I see, but then who made this rule?
I don't know.
Who made it? Where is he?
Tori made it.
Who? What?
Fuck you, Tori.
Just kidding. No.
Just we love you.
Like,
yeah, she bought my first deck.
So, I mean, that's great, but like, and maybe that's true, but like,
it is fun to learn them.
Well, why do you say that? I feel like we're drifting too far away from your New Year's resolutions.
No, it's really fun.
We'll get back
because obviously every card has a meaning. So the way I look at it, obviously your mom tackles tarot card reading differently than even Tori does because they feel like they have a connection on a different level. For me, it's just cards in front of a table, right? But obviously the cards are going to come up randomly, but the cards have a meaning and the meaning can be different, whether it's face up or face down or upside down. So I'm not claiming to have any special insight or power over these cards. It's just the luck of the draw. And I can tell you what these cards mean, and it's up to you to determine if they apply to you or not.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then and then the way I read tarot cards is I will pull the deck, and I have my own version of how I do it. I do 4 cards. And then I'll do another 4 on top of those if I feel like we want to read more. And I know some people do a full deck.
Sure.
But like, I'll read a deck, I'll do my reading, and then I'll tell you what the cards mean. And then it's up to you. I'm not trying to read your future or tell you what. If that means something to you, then let's have a conversation about it. Then we have a conversation.
Right.
And then I will use my advice giving or what the card means to what your situation is to be like, hey, maybe this is the way you should look at this. And that's the way I read tarot cards.
Right. And that's exactly how like they're supposed to be read. I've never really had a strong urge to get into tarot card reading, just mostly because I'm like the whole time you're talking about that, I'm in my head what I'm hearing is like you're the one subscribing the meaning. And you even said that a couple times.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm the one that's looking at the cards and being like, oh, this is how it means to me personally.
Yeah.
Obviously, the cards have their own meaning. But what I say to people who like are going to my mom for the first time or whatever, it's like, it's okay if a card falls and it doesn't make sense, you know, like, because there are
sometimes the card will make sense later on.
Well, not even that, just like there's shit in your life right now that doesn't make sense.
Absolutely.
So like, you know, like I remember I went to see this
First time I ever had my cards read was by your mom on a podcast.
Yeah, I remember that. See, and like,
thank God that kid never showed up.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. See, and that's another thing. It's just like it like can just be like a shot and a miss, you know?
Yeah.
Like
that's a shot and miss because that business
that shot was missed.
That business is closed down.
But you gotta did you?
She did.
She vasectomied you?
No, nothing happened to me. I mean, I could have a kid, but it's not with Heidi. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
But real quick, let me just get this thought out and we'll go back to
Sure. I'm sorry.
Beetling
I did feel like I cut you off.
So yeah, and then my other goal is I want to hit. I know this sounds stupid and it sounds like, hey, help us out. But I want to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah, dude, that would be phenomenal.
Just so when YouTube sneaks an ad of my video, at least I get some money out of it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Go ahead. Hey, what do you like? Just go if you're watching this on your phone, TV, whatever it is. Just give it a like. Like, I started doing this with podcasts that like I don't necessarily get notifications for everything that I've subscribed to. Like you can like change
so
those.
Many. And my thing is, I'm so obligated to show love to every single person's content.
Mhm.
So then I think mentally, this is the block I had, and I know we talked about it before the podcast, but I feel like I'm in a better place and mindset to talk about it. Like, so I literally go out of my way to listen to every single person who's local stuff. You know what I mean? And that's a thing I'm trying to do too. Like you're coming on the show, right? I know we didn't dive into it, but like coming in, I listened to your album. I've been binge listening to your podcast.
Mhm.
I'm not caught up currently, but I've been listening to it.
Mhm.
But like, and then I have people who come on and like, yeah, it sucks being a musician or it sucks being an artist because no one shows support. And then it's like, well, here's something that you can show support to, and you choose not to.
Right.
So like, and that can go even to professional wrestling. Like, why am I not growing as a wrestler, but I'm not going out and supporting anyone else's stuff? Like,
well, so what does the word support mean? Because I think some people hear that and they just mean, am I famous? And
or monetary, or
right.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it's more than that. That's why I like using the word championing and just being like, let's make the people who are doing the things the champions of the things that they're doing.
I will honestly send, even if I don't send a full review of what I think your podcast, I will send a screenshot of me listening to and I've done it with you.
You did that, yeah.
Where I'll be like, hey man, listen to the new show. I really like this, or I listened to the new show, and like because I would love that to be done for me. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
And I'm not saying like now that I'm saying this, I want you to do that, but it does help. You know what I mean? Like if you make an album as a musician, if someone comes to be like, hey, I like the last track, or like, hey, was your last track about you and Jamie? Like, I mean, like that means a lot to someone who creates, because like, oh, that means they actually gave a shit.
I told you about the first time that somebody told me that somebody I didn't know told me that they came to my show. Did I ever tell you that story? And I was just so flabbergasted. I offered him, like, I wanted to offer him $5. So I'm just like, I don't know.
I'm the same way. I'm like, thank you so. Oh, Heidi and lady are home.
Hi, girls.
All right, stop it. We're recording. Get out. Oh God, I'm sorry, everybody.
How was that for you?
Yeah.
See, there's a younger man in me would be not angry at your dog, but just
we should kick the dog, right? No, I'm joking.
I feel like it's better to have those jokes get out than to sit inside, because then I feel like you end up kicking the dog.
I won't kick the dog. But no, you're good.
Heidi.
Hi, Heidi.
Okay. How are you?
Look at Heidi's hoodie.
Wait, hold on. This is the perfect time to say this. I was telling Anthony before the podcast started that I watched a little bit of the New Year's Eve thing, and I was saying how beautiful you looked next to a schlub.
Stand there and show your hoodie off. Look at Heidi's hoodie.
That's the dog who's currently barking.
That's our asshole dog. Go lay down.
Go, buddy. It's cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're like, what I was going to say off mic was that I was saving for is that you look like a standard like television show husband.
Yeah.
Like you have a beautiful wife, and then you're just like, just slumming about.
Like
look at my beard.
Like the King of Queens.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Just this fat idiot.
Or just like Peter Griffin
with a real hot wife.
Yeah.
I'm just drunk because she's like, I'm so embarrassed.
I mean, I feel the same way, man. So like the problem is for being a man is that like you're very little is it like, wow, like that's a beautiful like it's a good thing that you're observing there. Like most of the times, it's just like, did you do something? Like, how did you earn your value today, man?
Is she have bad eyesight? Like, what's wrong with her?
My dad's one friend says that to Jamie every time he sees her. He's just like, so I see you got really poor eyes. I'm just like, that's a bad joke.
Yeah. How about I kick you in the teeth? And that you have bad teeth.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything in closing you want to say, or something we didn't plug, or something we didn't talk about?
Yeah, the last thing that I think I had to plug was I'm trying to think if I I got mostly
We came in,
everything.
I did a plug, and then we just had a great conversation. It usually happens.
Yeah, that's exactly how it goes. I was literally going to say to you on the way over here, like, let's get this stuff out of the way at the beginning, so then we don't have to worry about it.
I didn't read the sponsor plug until 10 minutes in.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I get you too excited.
We were excited.
The last thing that I'll say is that part of my like grounding process for 2020 is that like people don't know this about me, but like I'm a huge comic book nerd and like love that stuff, and like it's just not a part of my world that just like I just
What
don't
are you reading right now?
I started reading Saga. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
So I started reading that, and that like I just fell in love with. On my pool box, I have Spider-Man. Because that's
I can show you an app on your phone that you can get some comics.
Well, yeah, Comixologies or
no, it's like a pirate one.
a pirate one.
Yeah.
Okay,
because I'm poor, I can't afford. I just dump money into microphones. I can't afford comic books.
Right.
But I want to read
dude,
them.
comic books are mad expensive. So I've been like trying to go digital.
And I'm someone who has to read them from this. I can't jump in.
I know it's such a like that's I had that
OCD
same
kicks
problem.
in. Yeah.
That's why. So I downloaded this app called Comixology, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like $6 a month. It's unlimited. Like it's here's how I justify it in my head. I like a movie is 2 hours long, and it's usually like $15. So like or like let's say $20 after like food and all that shit, somewhere in that ballpark, between 15 25, like that ballpark. So that's $10 an hour, you know. So it's like then that's how I kind of quantify my fun money of being like, well, so like a comic book is like $4, so that's like half an hour. Would I pay that same thing to go to a movie?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, yeah, I would pay
Mhm.
for that, you know? So it's like the same thing as like, I don't have Netflix, but it's like, you know, I pay whatever it is a month because I know I'm going to spend at least this much time to justify it. So
Mhm.
for me, like, I've been intentional about like I'm going to read these things, and I've been really trying to read like indie comics because that's just who I am, and I'm like I hate how much of a hipster I am, and I'm like I only read comics that people don't know about.
Yeah, and then they get popular. I hate them.
Yeah, but no, that's literally like well, because this is the reason that I do it is I'll go to the comic book store. There's one in Haven called Alchemist Cove that I would highly recommend everyone go to, and I'll just go to the indie section, and I'm just like, where's the number ones? Or
we have 2 local comic books in our area.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I interviewed them on the show.
Oh, we'll see. Like, I would love to read those.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so all that to say is I'm starting a comic. It'll be comic book movie and comic book podcast with a buddy of mine, and the name that we're going with right now is Nerd Talk with Ryan and Timmy.
You should do the cool kids in high school.
Yeah, because I reached out to Anthony. And I was like, "What's a name for a podcast?" And he went with Cool Kids in High School. Maybe I'll pitch that to him and see how. We were originally going to do Stoned and Nerdy, but we were like, "Well, it's illegal still, so we probably shouldn't promote like a weed-based thing."
If you ever need someone to come on and talk movies or comic books, I'm always down.
Yeah, I think like I'm really excited about it just because, like I said, like it's not a area that I really get to talk about much, mostly just because like people don't know me as like someone who's really into that stuff. But when I lived overseas, people would always go to Marvel movies with me because they're like, you can explain stuff to me afterwards. And I'm like, oh, that was like a pride and joy when I would like sit in a movie theater and like I would see people looking at me like and just like gauging my reaction
like
on
a
something
god.
that happened. Yeah. Or like at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 1 or 2 when in one of the mid-credit scenes. Or no, it's Thor 2 when they have the Guardians of the Galaxy post-credit scene where they showed the Infinity Stone for the first time, or they say like Infinity Gem or whatever. I like lost my shit because one of the first comics I ever read was based around an Infinity Stone. So like
the Infinity Wars.
No, it was just this random Avengers comic that happened to have like an Infinity Stone, and it was setting up like a later storyline.
Yeah.
But it like so it was like, oh my god, like this thing that I read in a comic book is there on the screen. Like it was just, and yeah, just like I remember the whole row of people I was with just like all looking at me.
Thor, the second Thor is when Thanos takes over, he goes to Asgardian and he goes, I'll do it myself, and he grabs the glove.
See, but
He gets the glove.
That's Avengers 2, the post-credit scene, Age
Is
of
it?
Ultron. Yeah, and
Okay.
but the problem is that it's
They all blend
there's-
together for me.
there's nothing that says that was Asgard. It was
Yeah.
just like some random room, and it's a different. Two things. It's a different gauntlet than is in Thor, and that gauntlet is there later when Hela pushes it over in Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, okay.
See, I have this knowledge.
I've never seen Thor Ragnarok.
So Thor, that used to be my sleeping music, or
Really?
sleeping movie, man.
Really?
When Jamie and I first started dating, I felt so terrible because when she would like spend the night, I would just be like, "Do you mind if I put Thor Ragnarok on to go to sleep?"
I have to fall asleep to music or a TV or a movie or something.
Dude, listen to my compulsive brain. When I go to sleep, I put a podcast in on a headphone, and I put like either like those sleep like
Really?
music.
You got a lot going on.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, but I sleep and I'm like stoned to the gills.
Yeah.
But I sleep decently. I got a lot going on in my head, man. So like enough to like get me to go to sleep.
Billy
is,
said,
like...
while we're ending the podcast, go on a half-hour tangent about Marvel films. Welcome to a Tony and Tim podcast.
Yeah, Billy.
So what do you want to? What do
beautiful bastard?
Anything you want to end with?
Man, what I would just say to people is, I had this conversation with my mom, and it really resonated with me. Is that, obviously here's the two memes that are going on online right now. It's like, new year, new me. This year's going to be the best year ever. And then on the other side, it's like, what do you think? Like coronavirus or the economy is just going to end? It's like, well, why don't you meet in the middle there and understand that these things are still going to be going on. That doesn't necessarily affect you as a person and how you can interact with your reality.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, and again, this is my mother's words coming out of my mouth, but it's like, build your own classroom, build your own little world, and participate with the world because you're supposed to, but also build up a safe haven around you, meaning that like if shit really hits the fan, and I'm not saying that it will, but like regardless, you need to know that there are people in your life that have your back no matter what. And I would have said that pre-pandemic, that it's
healthy to have positive people around you and people that are like-minded.
Yeah. So I would just say, build those communities. If you have those relationships, make them stronger, or just continue to try to be that type of person that is that with that. And another thing that I just think is super important that I just always feel like it's important to say is that it's okay for you to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people are told that enough. It's okay to love yourself. Your body wants to love itself. It does love you because
I try to love myself at least once a day.
Yeah, I mean, you got it, man, because or else like you're gonna end up kicking the dog.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
I love
buddy.
you, man.
I love you too.
We gotta do it again, obviously.
Yeah, check out all the stuff. If you have any questions, I mean, we're small. Just hit me up. I love you, Billy. Keep doing what you're doing, buddy.
Billy, do me a favor. Also, I know I've been fucking working this kid to the bone. So you're gonna see the intro outro music that was all done by Steve Fulton, but Billy helped me make the video so you guys can physically see the intro outro, and they're amazing. But I need them audio version so I can add them to the audio only. So if you can send that, we have a little group page that we put everything in. But Billy, I need the audio versions. But here is Steve Fulton with the outro video made by the lovely Billy Trey. We'll see you guys next time. We're out of here.